Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Gamers Lounge podcast. My name is John Meadows. With me, as always, Dennis, Eric, and Nathaniel. How's it going, guys?
It's going.
I'll take it in order so that way I can pay attention to what's going on. So,
and Mario. You forgot that one.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
That's right. Yeah,
Mario's our new co-host.
Yeah.
Pretty quiet.
Yeah. He's just being lazy in the background.
Yeah. He's more of a referee, if we start arguing. That's when he starts
referee.
Yeah, exactly.
Supervising.
Supervising.
It's the new Mario Supervisor game. I don't know how it'll work, but surely Nintendo has some magic for that.
Oh, I'm sure they can pull anything else out of their hat and make the
Mario Office Simulator.
Yeah, why
There'd
not?
be a whole lot of supers though, because you'd be Super Mario Supervisor. So would you just call it Super Mario Visor instead, or how would
Super Mario?
No, you lean into it. Super Mario Supervisor, Super Deluxe, Superstar.
Super Mario Brothers presents Super Mario Supervisor. That's what.
I like that presents part.
Yeah, it's going to be the longest title, ever to squeeze on a small Switch box about.
Text is wrapped around the box.
Yeah, it's all just. There's no cover art. It's just all words.
And then somehow we cross it over with Kingdom Hearts and at least two JRPG series, so we could just have the whole box as just some weird unwieldy title, and that's
four lines of text.
Yeah, bold in the middle.
We don't need art. We'll just type it in there in a pretty fun. There you go.
Some soccer mom goes get it for her kid. It's 3 minutes reading off the title. I want that new Super Mario Supervisor game, Super Mario Brothers Present, and just going on and on.
Seems like a nice educational game. Get them started.
You have to take a deep breath. Yeah, you have to take a deep breath before you say the title, otherwise you won't make it through.
No, you'll pass out. Yeah.
Or in the middle of it, it has instructions: take breath here.
Yeah. When pre-order, breathe.
Yeah, breathe in quotes. Breathe.
Just breathe.
Yeah, I could totally see that. So. Oh, that would be hilarious. But yeah,
and Collector's Deluxe Edition.
Yeah, the Collector's Deluxe Edition. Oh yeah. The possibilities are endless of what you could do. It's unbelievable. We'll expect a check in the mail, Nintendo, for giving us giving you your next big IP idea. So.
Well, with all these crossovers, we just want any gaming company.
Well, yeah,
it's all the games in one. So everybody pay us now for this awesome idea.
Yeah, sure. Why not? I can get behind this. I agree. I concur.
Well, speaking of Mario, actually, a couple months ago, my girlfriend surprised me with this cute little canvas, and now that I'm back, I can hang it up. It's a nice little.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice little Mario. Yeah. So I got a little bit of kanji on it, so now I can put that next to the other Mario canvas that I've got. You can kind of see it behind me, right over there.
I see about a sliver of it on the screen. So.
Yeah, just a small one, but yeah, I can probably put it around there, maybe cover up Jump Force with it.
Yeah, there you go. You can move Jump Force over to the other wall behind the door there.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh!
I'm sure as most people would prefer, just move it to the trash, but, I don't know. I like it enough. I'm one of those weird people. I liked the game back.
It wasn't a deep cut. It was just, you got that whole wall over there. I mean, you might as well. I mean, they won't be able to see it when the door's closed or open, but,
That's right. That's right. But, who needs to, anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Poor Jump Force, man. Jump Force, I don't know. I can defend it, but, that's not what we're here for. It's, you either enjoy it or you don't. It's not the worst thing I've played. Not the best thing, People have made valid points, but for what it's worth, I had a good time with it.
Yeah, that's all that matters. There's a lot of games that that critics and a lot of other people didn't like that I thoroughly enjoyed. So
which one of those I'm sure we'll get to. I think it's on all of our lists. So which scores all over the place, and one with a certain little furry character. So
yeah. Even though I haven't played it too much, but I played it enough.
I've downloaded my copy and started it up, and that's it.
Well, anyway, we'll get into that in a few. But let me pull up my notes here. My screen's all out of whack. Coming back from vacation, everything is wacky and crazy. But anyway, we're here to talk about games. We're not here to talk about other stuff. But But yeah, we talk about we start off with what we've been playing. I haven't played a whole lot. Well, we'll just talk about the one we were talking about, Biomutant. I played maybe, I don't know. I'm still not even out of the starting area. I've maybe played an hour of it. I started playing it while I was out of town working, and just kind of ran out of time to start something like that. Didn't even, and I need to finish. I'm on the cusp of finishing Mass Effect, and I haven't even finished Mass Effect 1 yet. So I drugged the Xbox to Florida with me on vacation, and hooked it up, and I played it for maybe 5 minutes while Nikki was getting a shower, and even that, it was just playing Forza for real quick, and then we never turned it back on again.
Forza is real pretty on the Series S and the X. It's crazy how gorgeous that game is.
Yeah, it really is.
Like my maybe about 2 weeks ago, something like that. It was whenever we didn't have a podcast, so I forgot to bring it up last time. But so my girlfriend ended up getting the Series S, and so that's what I've been out of town. That's what I've been playing on basically. And one of the first things I did right away was boot up Forza. I downloaded Forza, played that, and I just started taking screenshots, and like I couldn't stop taking screenshots. I mean, I already have a problem with photo mode, but like this, it just looks so gorgeous. Which by the way is ridiculous considering how beautiful it already looked on the regular Xbox. And especially if you have a One X. So, and this just got like an optimization patch. So imagine when the next Forza is built for natively for the Series S and X. Like that's I'm scared. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm scared. Like it's scary to think about.
I put that one on PC a lot, and so having it with all the graphics up and higher frame rate, doing that on console now on your big TV is just gonna be awesome.
Yeah. The frame rate is just, it makes or breaks that game. And now it's like I can't go back to it on, if I wanted to play it on like Series X or One X or something like that, I don't think I could play it right again. I don't want to go back to that.
It was a performance mode, but that resolution mode is where all pretty. Like I mean, like at Forza, like you see the difference between the resolution and the performance mode. A lot of games you really can't, but Forza is one of those games on the One X where like you see the difference between the performance mode, resolution mode, whatever you prefer. But the problem is that 30 FPS that can be problematic, especially for any racing game. So
it's got to be at least 60 for a racing game. Otherwise, it's just you can't react fast enough. More than even just like seeing it, it feels a little weird. But the reaction times is what you need.
Yeah, and that's been like the biggest problem with I think the last couple of Need for Speeds and why you've seen so many people complain about them. Now, granted, that hasn't been the problem on PC because they're not capped at 30 frames. Right. So I've been playing the last few on PC, but I know when that horrendous reboot came out, that was at 30 FPS, and then I think Payback was at 30 FPS, and I think Rivals was at 60, but that was before like Ghost started taking it, like the new studio started taking over and developing them, and it's just like, why are you doing this? Don't ever make a racing game 30 frames. It's just, it doesn't look good unless it's a game that you don't really need like quick reactions with, or there's not enough going on where it's just like you can kind of get away with it. But otherwise, like, it's, I just always avoid 30 frames for a racing game. Like I just think
now, anything that's moving that fast, if you can't have the 60 frames, it'll hurt your eyes even sometimes if stuff is like flying by all like juddery. But if you get the extra frames to be a little smoother, you can actually play it longer too.
Yeah.
I just think if Mario Kart is doing 30, so should you. Doing 60, so should you.
Yeah.
So no, doing 30, my God. no one do 30 just because Mario Kart's doing it.
Yeah, right. Let's see, what would that be? That was probably what the N64 version was, probably 30 frames per second, something like that. I mean,
right, probably. But
if that.
Yeah, if that. So let's not go back. Let's go forward. We'll go back.
Yeah, let's go forward. Let's go forward. And then let's go ahead and put Mario Kart on Game Pass. That way you can get that 120 FPS boost that so many games are getting.
So that you can get even more annoyed when you get hit by an ultimate some power shell, lightning bolts, whatever, from like 2 feet from the finish line, and then you lose. It's just like But it was so much better in 120 frames a second.
Oh yeah, that made all the difference.
You can't be as mad because you just appreciate the fluidity of your death, basically.
Oh man, that carnage looked real good at that high frame rate.
The particle effects on that blue shot.
Oh man, that's why I want real Burnout game at 120 frames a second, like a modern Burnout game would be so good.
What was that Dangerous Driving that came out? It's by the same team, but it didn't get anywhere near as much.
Well, it's not the same team. It's like the same studio founders or whatever. They're kind of spin-off indie-ish studio, and they probably have some people that went over there, but like some Burnout people went into like different Need for Speed studios and all that. They're all that talent's all different places at this point.
Gotcha.
Well, that's like
man, the reason they need to make Burnout games is because they don't use licensed cars, and that will always make a better racing game if it has to do with crashing, because you can't crash licensed cars as much as you can crash just made up whatever cars.
Yeah,
that always makes it more fun.
Yeah,
the manufacturers don't want to see the damage.
Oh man, I was going 200 miles an hour and I just freaking T-boned this concrete barrier. Oh look, I got like a tiny scratch on a mirror over there.
Put a little Band-Aid on it. You'd be all right.
Here, let me go buff that out. There we go.
Well, that's like
buffed it out with a towel and it was done.
Yeah, let me get a wet wipe. It'll be all right.
Talking 60 frames a second, it's like when we went on the trip, I erased all my pictures. I had like 2,000 pictures on my phone, so it was like I wanted to free up as much space as possible. So if we took more, not knowing how many more pictures we're going to take. Well, since I have the 12 Max iPhone, I boosted up the video to 4K HDR, 60 frames a second, and then the highest resolution for the pictures.
I want to know, how much space that was taking.
Honestly, I mean, I didn't take a ton of pictures, and I only took, maybe 4 or 5 videos, but they were only they were 30 seconds or less. They weren't like real long videos.
How much space do you have? 128.
Yeah, 128 gigs, and I mean, I think it took up 3 or 4 gigs is all it took up. All my pictures and the videos. It wasn't very much. It wasn't.
Is it 3 or 4?
Yeah.
That's not bad. That's actually reasonable.
It wasn't that bad. It's like I really didn't need to erase all the things.
They've got some fancy codecs on the videos. Even with a few seconds, if you're at like 4K 60 like HDR, that data adds up. So they definitely have some sort of magic in there that like probably only really plays on your phone. If you try to put it somewhere else, it would have to convert it and be like, look, it gained so much so much file size.
And I know when I put them up on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, I know it compressed the crap out of them, but I mean, I want to say that I had. Well, I can look.
Well, yeah. Well, and you put them on there; they're doing their own.
Yeah, they're doing
processing whenever you upload it, so it doesn't really matter what the source is sometimes because it's just like, hey, we've capped it to whatever our system has.
Yeah, but I want to say I had like maybe 85 gigs available, and I've got like 81 now. It wasn't a whole lot, but like I said, I didn't do as many videos as I thought I might. But the one videos that I did, holy fright, when you're watching something in HDR and 4K on this little screen, it's just smooth as crap. It's like, now it's like, all my videos that I ever do on my phone have got to be at least 60 frames per second. They all don't have to be 4K, but they've got to at least be 60 frames a second now, because it's like ridiculously smooth and how it feels like you're there. But I mean, like, I think the longest was like 25 seconds. They weren't like huge 30 seconds. It weren't like I was taking like 5 minutes of video on a phone or something like that. It's just, I don't see the point unless you're
you weren't pulling a Quentin Tarantino or a Martin Scorsese.
Right, yeah. I mean, you're walking around Disney World. You're just wanting to get a video of this and that, and then go on. You're not wanting to, I'm not wanting to start. Okay, here's my hour-long waiting line, and then then we get on the ride, and I video the entire ride that's 20 minutes long. I'm not going to do that.
You have like 6 to 7 hours of standing in line, and that's all the footage you have.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, though, the one thing we said about going to Disney World is I don't know how some, if you're an older person who doesn't, is not tech savvy and not savvy with a smartphone, I don't know how you do anything in Disney World, because everything had to be done with a smartphone. Everything had to be reserved. Everything. I mean,
like your tickets and stuff too.
Tickets were on the phone. We walked up to the thing when we walked in and pulled up our wallet on the phone and just tapped our phone on their little round thing that they had at the gate. You know, I mean, it's like, man, if somebody's not tech savvy, how are they going to do anything? We had to make reservations for. There's only one ride we didn't have to make reservations for. Everything else we had to make reservations for. If we wanted to go into the market to see all the stuff you had to buy, we had to scan a QR code and join a group, and then they'd send us a text, and then you had 30 minutes to get over there when it was your time. And the same thing with the Rise of Resistance ride. We had to get in a queue, and you had to try it at 7 o'clock. If you missed it at 7 a.m., you had to try it again at 1 a.m. If you missed it then, sorry, maybe if you come back next time, you could get in. But, you had to do it all on smartphone. And
what that reminds what that reminds me of is like going to PAX, where it's like Nintendo is like, okay, we got these times. You need to sign up for the queue at 8 for the 11 o'clock slot, and then you get another chance like an hour later. That same sort of thing. That's an interesting way to do thing. You just gotta be on it.
Well, it's like, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. We were on it, and like 6 seconds in, they were gone. Tickets were gone. We had join, bam, and it was like too late. Now 1 o'clock, it was a lot easier. But
less people, you think?
I'm guessing your morning crew, you could only do it once a day, so everybody that rode it once couldn't go ahead and do it again. So, that eliminated a lot of people. And the park hopper people couldn't do it at all because park hopper didn't start till 2. So it was like, so that eliminated, a lot of people there. So, but if you didn't have a smartphone and you were wanting to go on that ride, you're like, well, I'm here to stand in line. Yeah, that's not the way it works. You got to have a smartphone. You got to. And then even then, it was a 3-hour wait after we got in the queue. So we just kind of hung out, and they sent us a text message, said, hey, you're boarding now. Show up in 30 minutes.
Looks like you had a pretty good time.
Yeah, we did. It was pretty cool.
Picked up a couple things.
Oh, yeah.
Was it how were the crowds? Was it pretty busy?
I mean, there were a lot of people there, but when we left about 5 o'clock, and the parking lot was like half full, so we figured that probably capacity was 50%. We're just guessing. It wasn't crazy busy. I think it took us 45 minutes standing in line for Smuggler's Run, and when we went into one gift shop twice, and we had to stand in line both times for it, it was maybe a half-hour wait. Everything else was just queue it up, send me a text message when you're ready for me, and we got 30 minutes to run to the other side of the park and go, hurry, here we go. But it wasn't that bad. It really wasn't. But it was fun. We're already planning on going back in the winter. Except this time we'll probably stay on, we're talking about maybe staying on like a resort or something that way. Because like when we bought stuff, we had to carry it back to the car. If we'd have known, if we'd have been there on the resort, they just would have sent it to our rooms. We could just went, send it to the rooms. We'll pick it up later.
That's awesome that they do that though. So you don't have to like carry around all this stuff like all day.
Well, and then we found out we could have even had them send them to the front gate and just could have picked it up on the way out.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, we had no idea. We'd already bought it and walked, carried it around, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you could have just told them just send it to the front gate, and it would have been there for you." It's like, well, that's awful nice. Clean. It was so clean. It was freaky. I've never been to a park where it was just there was nothing. It was like there was no bugs, there was no flies, there was no nothing. It was so weird.
I'll tell you what, if you, because I know you have Disney Plus, have you looked at like all the like how they kind of run the stuff? Like those documentaries are fascinating to me, but it's crazy. They are on it every minute of the day, 24/7. Like when that park closes and they send all these like crewmates and stuff like that to just get on it and just sweep the place, especially like during like the seasonal stuff where they have to like change everything. It's amazing though, like the work that they put into it, and like they do not mess around. Like it's some like world-class stuff that they do.
Apparently they have like my brother who's he was a park and recreations director. He went to a lot of seminars and stuff where a lot of those guys spoke about how they did things. Apparently there was like, if you're in that kind of industry, you don't have to work for Disney, but you can go, there's a university that they have that you can go to, and they'll show you exactly how they do this and how they do that, and they'll train you and all this and that, so you can take it to your work. And if you're at a park or park director or whatever, you can set up something like that. But they teach you how they do all that stuff. It's amazing. I mean, it's just it was crazy. And as much as we paid, it was worth every penny. I mean, enough that before we even left the park, we were already talking about, well, we'll come back and do this, and now we know how this works, and we don't have to. It was hot though. We didn't eat, and that's one thing we didn't eat. We didn't eat. It was too hot. It was too hot to eat. It wasn't humid, but it was just like 90 degrees, and it was just like, ugh.
Yeah, I mean that's
and
Florida
expensive.
for you.
Man, it is expensive to eat.
Well, it wasn't any more expensive than us going out and eating at a nice restaurant, honestly, for what we wanted. But it was just like you walked by and you smelled the food, and you were just so hot. It was just like, yeah, that doesn't smell good.
I think the last time I was at a Disney park was like 2003. It's been a while.
This is my first time. Man. I've never been before, so.
I've been to Disneyland World, both Universals and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they're fun. I prefer I definitely am interested in Star Wars. I prefer the California parks due to, I think everything's a little bit closer. It's easier to get around a little bit. My experience at Disney.
Yeah.
It was mixed, but this was like the late night.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things have changed too.
Yeah.
But,
I need to go check out that Harry Potter stuff. Wife keeps saying, "Oh, we gotta take a trip." Yeah. Harry Potter stuff.
Now they don't have a Universal in California, do they? Is that only
in
Florida? Do they?
No,
okay.
They got both. Yep.
I have no idea.
Florida.
I think the one in California is the Universal in California. The one that also has like the park too, or is that Florida?
Got me. I don't know.
Sorry, I'm not knowledgeable.
No, I don't have a clue. All I ever know is the one down in Florida. So I only know is the one on my side of the country. I don't know anything about what goes on over there. Like I said, I didn't even realize they had one. So
now you know.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and that's why I haven't hardly played anything, is we were just on vacation. And
I thought you didn't play anything on the plane.
We didn't fly. We drove.
Oh, you drove. That's right. Mm-hmm. And you drove, didn't you?
Yep.
I remember the pictures. Yeah, okay.
15 and a half hours up, 15 and a half hours back.
I have done that drive many times.
Try to play. Yeah, don't do that. That's
bad. No. The game I was playing was I was driving the convertible Mustang. That was the game I was playing.
There you
go. Yeah, because
muttering under his breath at other drivers.
Yeah, no, that's the one thing that I know, that there's plenty of driving games to play, because everybody sees that car and thinks they have to show off in front of it. So
yeah, I can imagine.
And I got to fit it. I can see I got 4 Georgia. I got 5 states worth of it. So but no, it's not bad. I don't mind driving. We drove it straight through on the way home. It was like a little over 15 hours. So, but I'm still sleepy. So.
That's because you drove for 15 hours.
Yeah, I drove for 15
I can imagine.
Yeah, I've done that drive many times. It hasn't been 15 though. It's usually like 11 from NC down to Florida. But it's. I know what that feels like.
Yeah, it's not terrible. I mean, it's all interstate, so it's as long as there's no construction, it's usually pretty good. But.
Well, that's always the worst is construction. It's like, because even something like a 3-hour drive, which that's happened a couple times when I've gone to Charlotte, is there's always some form of construction around some corner that you can't see, just waiting for you, and then it just becomes miserable there, and all the just all that nonsense you have to go through, where all the cones and they have those like cement walls to kind of make one file line down a certain for like 10 miles, and it's
well, the last time we went, which was we figured it was a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, we drove down and we got 2 hours from where we were staying at, and there was an accident on the road. No, we were 20 minutes, and there was an accident on the road, and we sat there for 2 hours while they cleared up the accident, landed a helicopter on the road to fly somebody out, and everything like that. And we were stuck in a place where we couldn't turn around, and you couldn't cross over, you couldn't go back, you couldn't. It's like we just sat there for 2 hours, and then on the way home. The last time we went, there was like a truck burning on the side of the road. It was like this time it was very uneventful, other than some construction. It was like no cars, accidents, nothing burning, nothing. It's like,
I think the worst car that I've seen actually involved a truck. Also, it was this 18-wheeler that was like completely flipped over, and there was like news crews everywhere, and like literally from. I was trying to get to a place. Let me put it this way: I was trying to get to a place that was 15 minutes away. I think I was driving to Best Buy that particular day, and it took me 2 hours. A place that's 15 minutes away took me 2 hours.
Sounds pretty bad.
I believe it.
Yeah. And even all the exits, because I was like, oh, well, let me just go to the next exit and take a back road. Nope, those were messed up too because everyone had the same idea.
Everybody's bottlenecking up in there, yeah.
Right. So it was an absolute mess. I never did see it on the news though. So, I wanted to so I don't know if they were fake news crews or what. But,
well, that was there was an accident in North Carolina outside of Winston-Salem, and I mean it was a pickup truck flipped on its top, and I was like, man, I wonder what happened, and could never find anything in the newspaper about it on the news. Nothing. It was like, nope.
People kept it for themselves, or just like, we'll save this one for a special day.
Apparently, yeah. It's weird.
We'll do a throwback Tuesday. Just can already see it. Tonight at 8, something you haven't seen.
Yeah, something you haven't seen that happened a while ago because it was a slow news day. But anyway,
4 months ago, there was an accident on the highway. I know this is very strange.
we had so much other news that day to talk about. We just didn't have time to talk about it. 4 people were killed. It was tragic, but we didn't talk about it at all. But now we can. So
a puppy climbed a tree.
You're probably worried if the interstate's going to be backed up, but no, this was 4 months.
Yeah, so 4 months ago. Don't worry about traffic. Traffic's fine. It's
next on Delayed News Channel.
Yeah, exactly.
There's probably a market for that. There's probably a demographic channel, a delayed for just people who just are just who usually don't really keep up with current events, and they're just oh, what's been happening the last 6 months, and then they just happen to run into that news piece
I'm telling you, that could be a YouTube channel. That could be a YouTube channel. Somebody's missing. We just
previously on news. There you go. Even gave him a name. Previously on news.
Make old news. If you make old news new again, then I think you have a market.
Yeah.
It keeps things fresh that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Nostalgia even more popular.
But anyway, Biomutant. Weird teaching it all the way around to Biomutant. But Dennis, you played it. You actually did a review on it, so you know more about it than I do. Because, like I said, I'm not even. I think I've gotten I've gotten to the part where you get join your first tribe or whatever they call it. And then,
the tribes.
Yeah, and then I went out to go start taking bases or whatever it was. I forget what. That's how long ago it's been since I played it, so I don't even remember. But I know you ended up doing a review of it, and you had mixed feelings about it.
Yeah, it was. I feel like at this point, Nathaniel's probably played more than I have. Honestly, I played enough to the point.
No, Nathaniel, he ended up not picking it up. So.
Oh, okay.
Nope. I saw the reviews, and I saw enough videos on it, and couple of things from the videos that would have annoyed the crap out of me. I'm just I'm just gonna keep playing Mass Effect. I don't need to play Biomutant. I'll wait for it on sale, maybe, if I ever play it at all at this point, because it seems a lot of the personality that you assumed that it had, it does not have, and the narrator in just the short bits I've seen in trailers and stuff annoyed the crap out of me, which made me crack up when it said that they put a patch in so that you could turn it off.
Yeah, which I was glad
I was that's telling, because if he talks too much, that's no good. It seems like because they're a small team, they're trying to get a bunch of voice in there as cheaply as possible by only having one actor do most of the actual talking to you instead of just the cutesy noises.
And I'm not 100% sure, but it really felt like that narrator was the dude that narrated the Skylanders game. I'm almost positive it was.
Oh, he sounds a lot like, even if he's not, the style of voiceover sounds like Stanley Parable.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much what it sounds like, and it's doing the Stanley Parable, narrating what you're doing kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's that really annoyed me at some parts. Some parts it was fine, like when you were talking to someone and he would tell you, "Oh, well, he's saying blah 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 blah." But when you're just walking around and you're running from point A to point B, and then all of a sudden he goes, "Well, that was fast," or something like that. It's like, why do I need that? What's up with that?
So, I'm going to try to just paraphrase my review, but basically, from everything that I've played so far, it was not, I think, and I tried to keep my expectations at a reasonable place, because I know, when it got revealed, it looked amazing years and years ago. I think it got revealed in 2017, and I was like, oh my god, this is like fresh and like new looking. It's like Legend of K on steroids. Like, let's go. Like, this looks awesome.
Yeah.
2017, yeah, I believe. If not 2016, actually. But I believe 2017 sounds about right. So, and then they went radio silent for a long time. You assumed it was either canceled or, or whatever.
It was a pretty small team, though, right?
If I'm not mistaken, yeah. I don't know.
Like 20 people, something like that.
Yeah, somewhere in that range, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to guess maybe like 12 or so. But yeah, either way, for a game that for a game that was trying to be that ambitious, 20 people simply was just not enough,
It looks like there was 20 people trying to do a Ubisoft scope open world game, and the result is about what 20 people could pull off in like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me anyway.
Yeah. Now, you also have to take into account that a game like No Man's Sky was made with, I believe, 6 or 7 people. Now, they've grown their team, but at the time of, when it launched, it was literally, if I remember watching a documentary, it was like Sean Murray, and he even kept half of his team away from it because he wanted to surprise them. So, like, when they were working on it for like a year or two, it was just him and like maybe 3 other people. And then when he like invited like the other half of his team to to show them while they were working on whatever they were working on at the time, maybe like Joe Danger or whatever, then it grew like 7, 8 people. It wasn't more than 10, I can promise you that much. Now I'm sure Hello Games has grown because they've they themselves have gotten to be a bigger, more successful studio. But yeah, and we all saw the disastrous launch that No Man's Sky had, right? So not that Biomutant has had a disastrous launch, but the point is that there's a scale that I think only so many people can reach when it comes to game development, because it's not easy, and then funds are a big part of that as well. Time and money. Time is money, money is time. So now Biomutant ended up being this sort of mediocre sort of experience that like I never even though I had a good time with it, I was never truly having fun, if that makes sense. I was enjoying what I would play, but it was never enough for me to play long sessions, right? So I would play maybe 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, but I can't. That's a game that like I can't sit down and play for hours on end because it's not gripping enough, So I end up just finding myself, again, enjoying bits and pieces, but I'm not having enough fun to the point where I'm just like, oh man, I can't put this down. That's just not how that game is built. There's just a lot of inconsistencies with that game as well. It tries too hard to be sort of like a Fable-esque sort of like design as well, in which there's always these branching paths. When you start the game, you have like a bunch of different classes, and you can set up your characters a certain way, and depending on how you sort of do your characters, which they do through this sort of like genetic mutation sort of thing, like the scales are weird. Like they're not your typical sliders. They're like these circles, and then you sort of form and like shape shift depending on how you build yourself.
It looks like it's sorry to interrupt. It looks like it's not that long of a game too. Maybe 15 to 20 hours.
15 hours.
Yeah. Well, it depends on if you do like every side quest and everything.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely doable. That's about the perfect size game these days.
Yeah, that's a good size game for me. 15 to 20 hours. But for a games, I mean, what little bit of it I played for a game that's supposed to be open world, it doesn't feel very open world to me.
No, and that's the thing, is it's almost like deceptively open world, where you do have a big world to play around in, but a lot of it just feels very linear, especially if you're just doing story stuff, you are going to just keep going forward the whole time. The sort of openness of it just comes from if you want to look for the few collectibles that there are, and then if you want to do your side quests and stuff. That's literally, it almost seems like every zone in that map is dedicated to a certain something. Otherwise, if you're just doing story, it's just straight line, and it's just not very flexible in that regard. And I don't know, it's not a bad game by any means, and I think if you can find a good price for it on sale, I absolutely do think it's worth picking up and worth playing. But it's just the excitement I had years ago versus what I played now. And again, I've kept my expectations sort of, I think, reasonable. It didn't even really meet those. I was just kind of, but at the same time, I wasn't really let down, as in like, oh man, this is garbage. I'm not at all. But at the same time, it didn't. It maybe met about maybe 70% of my expectations. So, but it's just enough of a letdown where I feel like, could this have been better off with another year of development? Would it really have made a difference with a team this size? Because it almost seems like they lost their focus, and that they almost sort of, quote unquote, had a reboot almost halfway through development. Because if you look at the UI back then, I even like the presentation from when they first showed it, which was apparently just an alpha state, versus now, everything just looked better back then. I'm not talking graphically or mechanically. I just mean in terms of presentation. Like, they had more of a comic book influence. Now that you got a couple of cracks and like booms and stuff like that really have no influence or flavor onto what's going on. Like, the game, if you took that out, all that comic book stuff, it would feel exactly the same. Like, it has no impact on it. The narration, unnecessary. Again, they try to do it for more of like a comic book flavor, but it's too excessive to the point where it's just it becomes more of a nuisance than anything else. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. It again, worth playing. As a $60 game, though, it's not a $60 game. Yeah. So
yeah. Well, and that's what I kind of wonder. Is it one of those games that maybe it was in development too long? You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
I think the actual answer is they did not do a good job of rating their vision down to something they could actually achieve.
Yeah.
Because they have something that is a very unique kind of an idea, like the kernel of the idea of what is Biomutant is good, and they have really like cool character designs, and the way that it all looks is nice. But then they tried to sprawl it out with too many systems and too many things, and we want to make an open world game, we want to do this, and this. Yeah. And they didn't narrow focus enough to be able to like get it in the execution, and the execution is the kind of what kind of failed that game, because they were trying to do too many things and only had 20 people to do it and didn't just quite make it.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it's a game that every time they showed it off, everyone's like, "Ooh, that looks cool," even if it's just like the character looks cool or whatever. Yeah. It has a unique kind of presence to it, and it was just kind of let down by lack of ability to execute fully on that to the level that you would need to.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to keep playing it because I want to at least get past that initial starter area, and
yeah, that's the thing too, is like the way the game starts you off, it does not leave a good first impression. That whole like tutorial, like, have you gotten to like the actual open world? Well, I guess you just said you went to the tribes, right? So I guess they're out there now. But yeah, that whole like when you're in that weird sort of underground facility area in the opening, like, that is not a good first impression. It stayed much longer than it needed to. And it was honestly boring. And also I encountered a bug there that had me have to restart my game when I was reviewing it, where the part where, if you remember, John, there's like a part where like there's like a big, like right before you talk to, what's his name, Out of Date or something, the dude in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
That guy. Yeah. Right before you talk to him, there's like, you have to save him from like a wave of enemies. And like, so I did that. And after that, you talk to him. But for some reason, I couldn't speak to him at all. Like there was no prompt or anything. So I tried everything. I tried to leave again and nothing. And so I had to reload the save. I did that twice actually before it finally let me talk to him. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? But I wasn't doing anything wrong. It's just the prompt wouldn't come up for me to.
Yeah, it's just like a bug.
Yeah, some kind of weird bug. Yeah, that's strange.
I guarantee you're probably not the only person to run into it.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and like it's, and again, so early on in the game, I mean, this was the tutorial area, not a good first impression.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe you played it before the first, pre-launch patch came out or something. Who knows?
It's possible. I know it got patched like while I was playing it before it came out, and it was available for everybody. But I don't know if that was something that addressed the issue that I had. All I know is there were definitely a few bugs, and I don't know. The game just felt the game's pretty, but it wasn't. That game, it's just not engaging enough. And I think Nathaniel brought this up at one point. I think when we were all messaging each other, where like the user interface, like when you start to go through like your upgrade systems and stuff like that, and your tree is just it just feels very dated. A lot of that game feels very dated. Like there's a lot of forward-thinking stuff in that game mixed with stuff that is just like, why do you still have this? So that's why I keep saying like the presentation for this game is just all over the place. And just it just feels, the whole game feels like they lost focus, and then like they kept the great ideas, but all the bad ideas they had, they didn't polish out. So it's just this mixed bag of like good ideas and bad ideas, and then these half-assed ideas where it's just like, it's just a constant sequence of half-assed ideas where it's like, man, like if these were like really thought out, that would be great, but they're not. So everything feels like a constant letdown. Like you're not upset by it. Like, well, you're upset that it's a letdown, but you're not, I guess, angry at it, and you don't feel like, it's the worst game ever, because it's not. It's an enjoyable game, and if you can get it on sale, absolutely pick it up. But it has its flaws, and it's enough to really bring down the overall package of the game to the point where it's like, this was one of those games that I think a lot of people were looking forward to after years and years of development. And now that it's out, it's like, if you missed out on it, it's okay. You're really not missing anything important. You can go ahead and play something else and not feel bad, I promise. You don't have to have that fear of missing out, that FOMO. I think you'll be okay. Get it on Black Friday, or if it comes to Game Pass. I think that if it came to Game Pass, the game would be much more accessible, I think, for a lot of people, and I think people wouldn't be as upset. But this is a fully priced $60 game, and I'm only seeing about $40 worth of material.
Yeah, and it's too bad because it kind of came out at a really good time. They had Mass Effect,
it did.
But there wasn't really any other big huge titles, so this was like the perfect time for it to come out. It wasn't going to get covered up by Call of Duty or whatever else in the fall or something.
And then Resident Evil came out like way in the beginning, like before, so people were already done with that. So like Biomutant had literally that time all to itself. It was, but it just kind of blew it. So
game itself just wasn't able to capitalize on the good timing.
Yeah, and that's too bad. That's too bad. So, Dennis, what else have you been playing? Go ahead.
In addition to Biomutant, so EA had another game that came out recently.
They have been sending me emails like daily. You need to play this, play this, play this, play this. It's like,
well,
okay.
Well, then I'm sure they sent you an email saying that you should play, and you absolutely should. In Knockout City. I've been playing Knockout City, and that game is fantastic, I think. And we've talked about this many times before. Everyone who knows me knows I'm not a multiplayer guy. I'm not a live service type of person. Like, really, the only thing I play is Overwatch consistently. That is a live service game, and I'll dabble in the Paladins still every once in a while. But otherwise, I'm not a live service person. This is the next big thing. Knockout City is, in fact, a knockout. And it's fantastic. And I think the best part about it, that I've been saying every live service game should have from now on, is it's cross progression, right? So it's cross progression and cross play. So I ended up buying this game rather my girlfriend spoiled me with it, because we were all playing the trial for it. We fell in love with it, so we all ended up getting it. And so, but I ended up getting it on PC, Xbox, and on the Switch. So, and again, that's the game itself. If you buy the deluxe edition, it's $30, right? So again,
and it's on
$90.
Game Pass,
I don't know how many times.
right? It's on Game Pass.
It is, yeah. So if you have Game Pass and EA Play is part of that, you can play it through there. But we all bought the deluxe edition. It comes with the extra box, and you get a bunch of extra exclusive stuff. And anyways, it's well worth it. But if you have Game Pass, absolutely jump in and try it out. And because of the cross progression, it's great. So I can just pick up where I left off on my Switch as well as on my PC. And it's super accessible. The game kind of seems, I think, at a first glance, because of the competitiveness of the sort of game, and since it's like dodgeball basically, you think that it would be something that's a little complicated, but it's really not. It's really, really not. A lot of the targeting is done automatically. If you want to avoid a ball, you can either catch it with the left trigger, or you can just straight up dodge. So, I mean, that gives you ample opportunity to sort of maneuver despite the auto targeting. And, the skins are awesome. The maps, there's not many maps. There's maybe 3, 4. I don't think there's more than 5 maps. They're probably just 4 maps at the moment. So, but you get used to them really quickly, and they all have their sort of own flair, and it's just a lot of fun. It feels good. It runs fluidly. Even on the Switch, runs 60 frames on the Switch. It's really, really impressive. However, there is they give you 2 options on the Switch. They give you resolution mode and a performance mode. Performance mode obviously is where you're going to get your 60 frames. Performance is where it's going to look really pretty, obviously, but you're only able to play at 30 frames. Now, I played this game at 30 frames when I first started it, and it was fine. Believe it or not, despite the sort of theme and the type of game that it is, it's actually surprisingly okay. Excuse me, but obviously I went ahead and put it on performance because I want 60 frames, more than anything else. So,
absolutely.
So, but yeah, no, runs great, looks great on the Switch. It's pretty, comparable and even, across the board. And and we were playing on the Series S for a little bit, and game runs great, looks amazing. It's crisp on the TV, and even on PC, it runs great, looks great. And again, same thing across the board. It's really impressive, and I'm glad EA brought this out because it's new and fresh, and it's something that finally doesn't necessarily need guns. I feel like these live service games just want you to pew pew somewhere to some degree, and even Rocket Arena, as much as I actually liked Rocket Arena, it got a lot of flack because this was not a free to play game. Now they handled this very, very smart compared to Rocket Arena, probably because they didn't want to repeat the issues that they had with that. Well, for starters, publicity. That Rocket Arena had absolutely no publicity, and I know it's a weird thing, but I think having it in the Nintendo Direct 2 months ago, whenever the last one was, big help. And because of the aesthetic of it, because of how it kind of presents itself, Switch is, while not the best place to play, I think a very smart place for it, but yeah, because I think the best place to play is probably just either your Xbox or your PC, because I mean it feels really good on that controller. Even on PC, I play only with the controller. The key bindings, they're fine, but I don't recommend them. I absolutely recommend a controller with Knockout City. But yeah, no, I mean it's doing that was very smart. Rocket Arena is not on the Switch for whatever stupid reason. I think if Knockout City is there, Rocket Arena should be there without an issue, but it's not. I don't know why. And the game was a paid-only game when it came out. Now, it got discounted really quick, really, really quick. I think you could get the deluxe edition for $10 after 2 weeks in. I'm not even joking. It was crazy. The game, when it initially came out, was either $40 or $50. That's wild. for a live service game that had absolutely nothing to it but multiplayer matches, and that was really it. And Rocket Arena is cool. I like the aesthetic of it as well, very similar to Knockout City, also an EA game, but the sort of, again, how it was promoted and marketed just didn't really do it any favors, and then it was locked behind a paywall. You didn't really give people a chance to sort of try it out. I think now it is on EA Play, so you can try it out, but unfortunately I think it's too little too late considering how long ago this was. So not Knockout City, I feel like, I don't know if it's by the same devs, I don't think it is, but because there's a lot of similarities to it, but I think EA played this very, very smart in the way that they promoted this, because I think they got like 1 million downloads like that weekend, which Rocket Arena did not. So I think Rocket Arena would probably be thankful if it got 1 million downloads now. So with all due respect to Rocket Arena, because I do enjoy it, but just a lot of the marketing behind that game and just the decision to not put it on Switch. I know it seems weird because I feel like Switch again isn't the best place for it or Knockout City, but having that audience there, it fits and it makes sense.
What's funny is the only two things that I bring up for the studio that did it is Knockout City and the Mario Kart live home circuit with the remote control.
That's right. Oh my god, I forgot about that. That's right. They did the live circuit. Yeah,
those are the only two games that I can see just in a quick Google search it comes up for them.
What a weird portfolio just to go from Mario Kart to Knockout City, something that's Nintendo and then multi-platform after that. That's odd, but but it worked out. And I'm glad it did because it's great. So anyone who has Game Pass, go check it out. It's a great time. It's super fun, and be part of my crew as well. We're known as the Sphere Vipers, so we're taking this very seriously. We'll see you at Madison Square.
When you come out, do you do the dance like they did in Dodgeball with the?
So there's a lot of I'm glad you brought that up because there's actually a lot of customization that you can do in that game, including intros and outros. Yeah. So depending on whether you win or lose, you can have different outros and stuff like that. And your intros can be all these sort of different sort of things. You can dance, you can do all these crazy things. You can spawn out of nowhere. You can teleport. You can, show up. Like one of the ones is great. You just show up like a Terminator. Just kind of like electricity around you, and then just kind of appearing. It's great. So all the customizations, it's great, and it's like the cross play is seamless, the cross progression is seamless, so long as you keep the same versions, because everything is connected to your EA account, so you do have to log into, if you have Origin, log into that, and keep it consistent across all your platforms and you're good. But go check out Knockout City, it's fantastic.
All right, fine, I'll download it.
Speaking of fantastic, there's a game that came out recently, and it's an early access game, which is weird. Now, you know me, I try to stay away from early access stuff, but Animal Crossing, I think that that captivated people for a very long time. I know we were all playing it nonstop for a while, and every once in a while we'll jump back in, and there are games that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Animal Crossing is one of them, in terms of the sim genre. And then there's a masterpiece like Hako Life. Now, Hako Life it's far from a masterpiece, but it is super, super enjoyable. It's early access, so it's definitely got its issues to it. But I think this is the next big thing to kind of carry that mantle forward, that torch forward for the sort of life farming sim thing. So it's the closest thing to Animal Crossing PC. I know there's been sort of a lot of sort of inspirations from Animal Crossing, and you see games all the time that look almost identical to Stardew Valley, but this is like a true, I think, sort of love letter to Animal Crossing. Hako Life, you have 24 villagers that you can choose. Well, not choose from. They show up kind of spontaneously, just like in Animal Crossing, but they're all animals, of course. And you get to the way this game functions in terms of how you sort of craft and create and go about your daily life is super intuitive and super relaxing, and it has a lot of those. I think what makes me enjoy this so much, and one of the pros that this has over something like Animal Crossing, is that it's the quality of life stuff. Like Animal Crossing still to this day does not have a sort bag feature. I know it's something that's super simple, but I want it.
Yeah.
I like to keep my things nice and tidy, and I cannot do that in Animal Crossing. Thank God this has a sort bag feature. Not only that, but like moving items is super seamless. Like you don't have to put it in your bag all the time, like you do in Animal Crossing. And then with Animal Crossing, you have to position yourself perfectly and then place it down. And then if you like it, leave it there. But if not, you have to grab it and pull it and do all that stuff. With Hako Life, when you place something down, it's basically like a grid sorts of shows up on the floor, and this is all in real time. It doesn't take you to a separate menu or anything like that. Like this all happens on the screen. A grid shows up and you just place it, turn it, position it however you want, and in any which way, and then you sort of place it down and to tell you if it's a good spot or not. And usually most spots are good. Usually the spots that aren't good are ones that logically aren't good spots. It's just like, oh, there's something in the way, or like, oh no, this is like way off screen or something like that, versus Animal Crossing where it's just like, no, it's like when you're putting down the patterns and they don't go to the edge all the way, like that's just incredibly annoying. It's versus this where it's just like, no, we're gonna make everything as even and seamless as possible. So yeah, it's in early access, so it's got its bugs, and I did write a review on it, so go to thegamerslounge.com if you want to kind of get the full thing. But for what it's worth, super enjoyable. I think at the moment it's $20, even though you can get like sort of launch discounts at places like Green Man Gaming and Fanatical and places like that. But if you want I think the next best sort of like life/farming sim on PC, and the closest thing to Animal Crossing, if for whatever reason you don't own a Switch, this is your best friend. Like Hako Life is going to be, I think, that kind of like new sort of standard moving forward and how it sort of carries itself. Hako Life, and I would argue probably Craftopia as well, but Craftopia has like many more issues, but I haven't played that at all, so I can't really say much on it. But just from what I know from like reviews and stuff, Craftopia is like got the right idea because it's like a farming sim, but like with like, imagine if Breath of the Wild was only a farming sim, then that's what that game is. So I think Craftopia and Hako Life, I think those are the two sort of like moving the genre forward at this point. Also, I think it comes at a great time where a lot of people, if they haven't already, are sort of kind of done with Animal Crossing at this point. It just hasn't really, it's, people are ready to move on. So if you still kind of want that, but with a sort of like fresh take on it, Hako Life. Go Hako Life always. Go check it out, even though it's early access. I promise you'll enjoy it. But be wary because it's early access, it's not without its bugs. I think it's only at a 0. Its build right now is at 0.5.
Oh wow.
So so we're far from a 1.0, full release build. So but the roadmap's looking good too. And this is mainly developed by one person, which I think is probably the most impressive part. Like he's like outsourced and gotten help, but otherwise like Wonderscope is effectively a one-man studio. And it's also published by Team 17, and they're great people. So go check out Hako Life. It's good stuff.
Cool.
So after that, despite all the happy and colorful stuff of Hako Life, Biomutant, and Knockout City, now we're going to go into the more, gritty, dark stuff, which is, so I played this game called Ghost of Tomorrow Chapter 1. And usually I don't like playing games that say they have chapters in them, like just call it Ghost of Tomorrow. And then when the next one comes out, call it Ghost of Tomorrow 2. Don't give me this chapter nonsense, especially when like the only way you can do chapters that I'll be okay with it is if I know within the next couple of months you'll be done with everything. Now the problem with indie games is that's never the case. You're gonna get probably chapter 2 3 years later.
Right.
Unless your life is strange and you're giving me chapter 1, 2, 3 all maybe like a week or a month from each other, don't do that. Don't do the chapter naming system. But I figured I'd try it out because it was on sale for like next to nothing. I think it's normally like $5 around there, but it was on sale for like 80 cents. So I was like, yeah, why not? I'll try it. I'm in the mood for a nice little...
that's steep 80 cents. Price of games these days. 80 whole cents.
Fine.
I'll do it for 80 cents.
So I was like, sure. Let me whip out the credit card for a couple of quarters, and
shaking their can out on Steam. Hey, can you put 80 cents in here for me?
Go sell a couple trading cards. Come back, buy a game.
Yeah.
That's right. But yeah, I got it for that steep 80 cents, but it was super enjoyable. It's a quick, and I'm glad, because if I paid like $5-6 for this game, I would have been so mad. But the game can be finished in like maybe like 30-40 minutes. It's not a long game, but it's a quick, nice little indie horror game, mostly just a walking simulator. So you're not going to be doing much. You can't really die in this game either. But it's about this girl who basically, she was in an accident, and you don't really know if she's dead or not, because she goes home like nothing happened, right? And she's like, where is everybody, and stuff like that. So it's one of those stories of just like, oh my god, am I really dead, or like, what's going on? Nobody can see me, stuff like that. Yeah. And so you start gathering all these notes and kind of like uncovering the story that way. And you have this sort of like apparition thing that like keeps like messing with you, and it's just like, oh, was I actually killed, or what's going on? Like, was this a planned sort of accident, or like what in the world happened? Then you start to uncover that little by little. And but the part that kills me is like, even though it's chapter 1, the story was finished. So it's like, all right, I unless chapter 2 is about some random, maybe it's all in the same universe or what, but again, it goes back to my issue of just like, don't put the chapter naming in there. I don't want that at all. So yeah, especially if the story felt finished, which it did. Like, and even like, even if some would argue that the ending had a bit of a cliffhanger, like, again, it's still, even you could still kind of like be like fully tied up that way too. So I think it was just kind of leading on to a potential second part. So, but it wouldn't make sense if it was the same person. So, but anyways, overall, it was an enjoyable game. Nice little indie horror game. It did give me a couple of scares. But after a while, as is with, if you do too many jump scares, you start to kind of anticipate and know where they're all coming from, and you start to get annoyed. That's my problem with too many jump scares, is you stop being scared and you start being annoyed. So after a while, I'm just like, okay, come on. I mean, like, this isn't scary anymore. Like, just stop it.
Right. New idea. Horror game where the jump scares turn into a rhythm game. So if you don't get a jump scare on the beat, you're losing the game. I don't know how you would turn that into a thing. It just came in my head.
I'll buy that for 80 cents. I'll buy that for 80 cents.
Yeah, a good 80 cents idea. Yeah.
I'll buy that for 80 cents.
Let's work on it.
We'll whip out the can for that one.
Maybe we can polish it a little and get a full $1.
Yeah, really.
Well, it's weird, like, thinking about, like, I think of something like Thumper, which was kind of targeted as like or marketed as a rhythm horror game, and Thumper is like really good, but there's nothing scary about it though. Like, it's just like it's unsettling because I think of the imagery, but otherwise, like, I don't consider it.
Yeah,
I don't know, but it's a good game. Everybody should play Thumper. Thumper's great. But yeah, so that was Ghost of Tomorrow chapter 1. I've been in, it was enjoyable. It was a quick little game if you want something nice and quick to kind of give you your indie horror fix. It's a good one to check out. As well as Caretaker. I played that. Well, Ghost of Tomorrow I played on PC, but Caretaker I actually played on the Switch. It was on sale for $2. I think it's normally $10. If you spend $10 on this, do everything in your power. I know Nintendo doesn't do this, but do try to get a refund. But otherwise, if
there's the truth,
that's the way to start out a glowing review. I bought it on Switch. It's $10. I know some they don't offer refunds, but try to get one.
It's glowing.
Turn up the fire. Take that phone call.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, like it's get a refund if you spent $10 on it. Otherwise, I spent $2 on it, and like I was initially gonna get this on Xbox, but I wasn't convinced enough, and then I didn't even realize it was on Switch until I was just kind of perusing through the eShop, and I was like, oh, that's the game I was looking at. So, and then I looked at the reviews on Steam, and they were fine. They were fine. But so, and then I spent 99 coins on it to make it $1. So I just spent $1. Now for $1, it was a solid dollar. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. But I had to give off that PSA of like, if you spend the $10, do everything in your power to get a refund, because the game, I think I beat it in like maybe like an hour. Like, man, it was quick, and the game was like, not only that, but it was like buggy, like super, super buggy as well, and just extremely like cheaply made. And boy, like when you go out into like, so what the story is you're this guy who likes to like debunk theories and myths and stuff like that, and you hear about this like abandoned like not a gas station, sorry, like a warehouse or something like that, and you go check it out, because you hear stuff about people like, oh, there's been murders here, or there's been like these ghosts that kind of go around, and since you're someone who likes to debunk stuff, since you don't believe in any of that stuff, you go check it out. So you go, and it's also like an asylum, and that's why it's called caretaker, because there's like, I guess the caretaker of the place is the one that's sort of this malevolent spirit or whatever that's going around. So you go check it out, and it's your usual sort of, you walk around, you find a key, you unlock this door, okay, and then then you do some puzzles in there, you unlock something, find more information, get another key for another spot, another part of the map, and then you kind of like trickle down from there. Right. Now after a while, you will be chased. You meet with the caretaker, and it's this dude in like this scary, gas mask and stuff like that. Now the problem is this is where all the bugs come in, because this game is just not polished by any means. So even though there's a run button when you're hit, so you have a couple chances before you die, right? So you can take about 3 or 4 hits before you die. There's no health packs or anything like that. Now the problem is those 3 or 4 hits don't make sense, because once you're hit, you literally cannot move. So why not just let it be a one and done, or where the moment he catches you, it's game over? Instead, you have to sit there for 5 seconds as he goes through this slow animation of hitting you, because you can't move, and you just have to sit there just waiting for the game over screen until you can restart again. It's nonsense to me. Like, you can't move. It just doesn't make, it's just not logical to me. On top of that, the sound design is all over the place. A lot of doors sound like the AIM doors. If you remember AOL Instant Messenger, every time someone logged on, it was literally that sound for every door, no matter what type of door it was. It could be a gate. It would have the same. It could be an elevator. It would have the same sound. And some things just were, I don't know. The game was all over the place. Overall, it wasn't bad. Like, I paid $1 for it. Fine. Now, but then the ending was just kind of like anticlimactic, but again, if you can get it for a solid 80 cents on Steam, go check it out. But otherwise, I just wouldn't really bother with it. You're not missing out on much, but for what it's worth, I'm not mad. Again, it scratched that itch, even though it caused more frustrations than anything else. But when you go out into the area, like the open area that puts you in with all these sort of warehouses and buildings and whatnot, man, it lags like crazy. Like, and the game isn't particularly pretty either, so like there's no reason why it shouldn't run well on Switch. But when you go on Steam, it echoes the same statements there, where it's just like, so this is a problem across the board. This is just a lack of optimization for the game itself, where it just chugs to like 10 frames. Like, it's bad. It's really, really bad. But when you go indoors, it's mostly okay. Like, it's playable, but once you're outdoors, oh my Lord, oh my God, like, you got to have some serious patience to walk around, because it's grueling. It chugs along. But yeah, in addition to that, just to kind of keep on the horror sort of theme here, since the last time we did the podcast, I have beaten Resident Evil Village. Yeah. So That game is amazing. It's fantastic. Now, my biggest problem with that game is that once you're done with an area, you can't go back to it. And the whole time I was playing that game, I wanted to go back to the castle. I wanted to go back to Lady Dimitrescu's castle and just mess around. Even though I'd already like finished her portion of it, I just wanted to go there to go back and collect the extra collectibles that I hadn't. But once you're locked out of an area, you're locked out. So that's a problem. So so it so when you do like a new game, plus everything does carry over, thankfully. And once you beat the game, you also unlock the extra content shop, which you can get all the crazy guns, right? Like infinite rocket launcher and things like that. And you can get all your figures and models and stuff like that. So you can look at just the assets and get a little background of it and stuff like that, everything that's in the game. If you want more of a background on Bella and Cassandra and all the sisters and Lady Dimitrescu herself and Mother Miranda and all them, it's an awesome sort of book on just everything, kind of giving you the layout, right. And given all their biographies and whatnot. But yeah, no, that's honestly my biggest issue with that game. And I don't remember Resident Evil 7 having that much of an issue. I know the other Resident Evils have locked you out of places before once you're done, but Resident Evil 7 was pretty consistent. Like you could go in and out of the house as you wanted. I think once you unlocked a spot or got a key for a door, you could kind of go in and out as you please, until the last hour or so where you're on the ship. Then because then the house doesn't have anything to do with that portion of the game anymore. Right. But overall, Resident Evil Village, fantastic. I'm gonna play it again. I already played a little bit of the Mercenaries mode. You unlock Mercenaries once you beat the game, which is effectively just Mercenaries isn't anything new to Resident Evil. It's just a portion of the game where you just kind of face off waves of enemies and you try to survive and you just rack up points. Very arcadey, you just and yeah, you just kind of go around the various maps that they have and you try to reach a goal, and you just rack up as many points as you can, and get the best rating that you can as well. And then of course that gives unlockables. Resident Evil Village is all about unlockables, which I think is the great part about it. Now I know everybody was complaining about the short campaign, but again, for someone like me who likes to squeeze out everything, especially from a Resident Evil, there's so much replayability in those games where it's just you get more than your money's worth. I've gotten more money's worth out of this $60 from Resident Evil than I promise you than you probably will from Palia.
Well, I promise. That seemed to be what the gist that I got from a lot of players is, yeah, it's short, but as soon as you beat it, you just want to go right back and beat it again with unlimited weapons or or unlimited ammo or whatever, just to that it's that fun of a game, even though it is really short. The trouble is I think a lot of players these days, they just, as soon as they beat a game, they're done, they want to move on to the next thing. They don't want to go back and replay it again. And I think those are the crowds that seem to be the loudest.
What if you could play it again but in a mech? Yeah. Would that be enough for them to play it again? You got to make it big changes, right?
Here's the thing. If you haven't played Resident Evil, there actually is a portion of the game where you do get in a mech. I'm not even joking.
All right.
Yeah. I'm not even joking. I'm not gonna tell you where. I'm not gonna tell you why. But there is a portion of the game where you get into a mech, and when that happened, believe me, my face, the first thing that the first words I uttered was why is this happening? why are we doing this?
Second words were, I want more.
Yeah, I'm okay with this.
Admittedly, though, it was fun, though. It was insanity. But also, Resident Evil Village is much like Resident Evil 4 was, it's Resident Evil Village isn't anywhere near as scary as Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 is the reason why I had to get a whole new wardrobe, right? So Resident Evil Village, however, felt, this is going to sound crazy to say, but if you increase the player speed, you effectively have Doom. I know it sounds crazy, but if you increase the player speed, I promise you effectively have Doom. And so it's more action heavy. Now, the part of the game that does scare you the most is, and I think I mentioned this last time, is House Beneviento, where it's just if they took that and made the whole game that, without it, because that portion alone of that game was already, I think, scarier than Resident Evil 7 as a whole. And you're only in that place for maybe no more than an hour, 45 minutes. If you're playing normally, obviously, if you're speedrunning it, you'll probably be in there maybe like all of 5 minutes. But otherwise, if you're there for the first time and you're going in blind, 45 minutes to an hour maybe. But that was my favorite part of the game. And that game was terrifying, but it was simultaneously fun, and it felt like more traditional Resident Evil, where you're kind of doing like puzzles and stuff like that. And you have very limited ammo, no matter what. You have to be very smart about every shot that you take. And also one of the scariest monster designs I've ever seen in my life. So outside of Silent Hill. So then I was convinced. I even tweeted, Masahiro Ito to see if I was like, dude, like, if you had told me, they designed this character in Resident Evil Village, I would have believed you, because it was just one of those things where it was so messed up, where it's like it can only come from his mind. But I guess someone was probably just inspired from his work over at Capcom, because this thing is messed up. Anyone who's played it knows what I'm talking about. But it's like this weird deformed worm baby thing, and it's it
wouldn't be Resident Evil with something weird in it.
Correct. Yeah.
Strange monster.
And the noises it would make, my God. But that was my favorite part of the game, just because of the monster design and the environmental design and the layout of the house and whatnot too. It was just so good. And the boss fight was like simple, but also like scary at the same time. And but man, Resident Evil Village has such a great cast of characters. Like, this has to be the best cast in video games in a very long time, I think, for me anyways. Just in terms of like, everyone was likable. Like, even all the villains were like super likable in their own way, and they're all memorable. There's a lot of games where like you face a boss, or even if they have their own sort of arc, once you beat them, you're like, all right, and you kind of move on. And then you don't really think about them. Like, usually when people think of bosses in games, they think of final bosses, right? That's the first thing that comes to mind, is like, oh, how was the final boss in that game? That's usually the most memorable, or the first boss, right? So, but every boss was like, or every single one of these characters had such an incredible sort of, theatrical sort of experience to them, that it was memorable. And they're all, for as nefarious as their actions are, they're all super like charismatic in their own way. Such a great cast, and like the actors all knocked it out of the park. And it's just, Resident Evil Village is just fantastic, honestly. It's like one of my favorite games to come out in the last couple of years. I do think overall the game is better than 7. However, 7 is scarier. So if you want a kind of a first-person horror game that's purely horror, I would say go play Resident Evil 7. Otherwise, if you want something that's scary to a degree but more action-heavy, Village is going to be is going to fit your needs for that. But yeah, no, incredible game. So yeah. In addition to that, I've been playing this one's on Game Pass, actually. It's called The Wild at Heart. The Wild at Heart, this game is, if you haven't heard this game, it's an indie game that just showed up on Game Pass recently, probably within the last week or two. And it's so good. Like, I kind of played this by accident. Like, I downloaded it because I was like, oh, that looks cute. It looks like something I would play. And then decided to just boot it up on a whim, and I couldn't put it down. And like, again, this goes with what we were saying on the last podcast with, what was it, Rain on Your Parade, where it's just like, this is the beauty of Game Pass, where it's just like, you end up playing or being exposed to games that otherwise you would have no idea what they were, or even bother trying, and I thank Game Pass for that. So The Wild at Heart, this is gonna sound crazy because it certainly doesn't look like it, right? But gameplay wise, it is literally Pikmin and Luigi's Mansion put together. It sounds crazy, but once you play it, you'll realize that that's exactly what that is. Because you're walking around with like a vacuum and you're sucking things up, and then you have these little vegetable troll things that follow you around, and you throw them, just like you would to kind of help move certain things, right? And help uncover things.
Yeah, I can see that looking at some of the screens with all the little like guys behind you. Yeah, I can totally see the Pikmin kind of at least look, and knowing you throw them to them, like, yep, that's Pikmin.
Yeah, and they help you with assembling things and carrying things and moving things and stuff like that. And there's so many little like rewards everywhere, kind of like Luigi's Mansion, where like you would what you would like try to like suck up like a lamp, or not a lamp, but like a vase or something. All of a sudden, a heart would pop out, or like coins would pop out and stuff like that, right? In Luigi's Mansion, like every little thing has something to reward you with if you're curious enough. Well, while that heart is kind of similar like that too, where like you can see like a one of those like pinwheels, right? One of those like paper, you see like a paper plane or like a pinwheel or something like that, and you use your vacuum on that. All of a sudden, their equivalent of like coins, their sort of currency, which is like these screws and stuff like that, pops up out of nowhere. Hearts will pop up. Sometimes rare items will pop up. Like, if you see something that might seem peculiar, you can interact with it, and then like, you'll get rewarded for that. There's just stuff filled everywhere. Even if it's something that's like super, super small, it still feels nice, right? To be sort of rewarded for your curiosity that way of like, oh, this tree seems like I can shake it. And let me see what happens. And then you shake it and like an apple falls out, and then that apple will restore, you can put that in your inventory and that'll restore, a heart of health or whatever. So it's awesome. Like it's fantastic. And yeah, it has sort of like a don't starve aesthetic to it, that sort of 2D
like paper cutout,
sort of
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And the world is beautiful, the dialogue's great. It's like relaxing at the same time. Like it's enough of a challenge where you want to play and upgrade and stuff like that, but at the same time it's relaxing to just kind of experience this world and uncover these sorts of puzzles and whatnot too. I don't know if I'm sure it's on PC. I don't know if it's on PlayStation.
It's on Steam.
It's on Steam. That's where I'm watching the video at right now, actually.
So, but I don't know if it's anywhere else, but if you have an Xbox or a PC, please do yourself a favor and check it out. Like, even if you don't have Game Pass, or even if you do have Game Pass, like, this game is well worth buying. It's well worth supporting. Like, go support those guys. Like, this is a great, fantastic game. Probably one of the better and more refreshing games I've played in quite some time. So, depending on how that's right.
Humble Games.
Right. Yeah. So, depending on how the rest of this year goes, wouldn't be surprised if it ends up, on, at the very least, if not on my top 10, it'll be, on the memorable or honorable mentions for sure. Now on the flip side, a not so good game, the Magnificent Truffle Pigs. Now, this one's weird. Because this one's published by AMC Games. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, "Oh, AMC. I know AMC. You talking about the theaters? Or like the channel? What are you talking about?" Yeah. No, AMC as in Walking Dead AMC, as in Breaking Bad AMC. For some reason they have a gaming they have a gaming division now apparently, and Magnificent Truffle Pigs is their first sort of published game. That being said, go back to your TV shows, because this game was just so a review was written for this. You can go to thegamerslounge.com and check it out. I did write a review, and I'm not going to go as crazy as and talk about it as much as I did in that review. But effectively, you go around, and the most disappointing part. Hold on, the glasses got to come out for this. The most disappointing part of this game, I think, is just the fact that this is actually developed by the team behind, well, not the team, but at least the founder, like the lead designer for Everybody Goes to the Rapture. Now, that game was developed by a Chinese room, was the name of the studio. And that game was actually really well received. Me personally, I wasn't really feeling that game too much. I didn't think it was bad. I enjoyed it, but all the acclaim that I got, I was just kind of, I mean, it certainly was no, What Remains of, Edith Finch or anything like that, or or Ethan Carter. It wasn't any of those. Like, those were amazing, but Magnificent Truffle Pigs, you play as this guy who kind of goes back to the English countryside, to an old like childhood home of his, and you meet up with your friend. Her name is Beth, I believe, and what she does is she just kind of invites you out to basically just uncover some lost treasures, basically. So you're walking around with a metal detector, and you're just trying to find some old, memorabilia, basically items, uncover some treasures, and and with every treasure that you uncover, there's usually like a story put behind it. Now, you walk super slow in this game, and I understand it's a walking simulator, but like at least give me like a sprint button or something, because I mean they give you a big enough area to walk around in that it just becomes it becomes tedious, and the game is just unpolished, and you can tell that right away from when you boot up the game. It's got this really bland sort of like almost RPG Maker looking like front cover, and I'm like, what are you like this? So off first impressions weren't good. The audio quality is all over the place. Like the voices when they talk, they sound like it sounds like it's put through like a vocoder or something, like when they're indoors, and then like when you're like in a car talking or just over the phone, everything sounds like it's put through some terrible vocoder. I don't know what's going on, and every conversation they have is just not gripping. Like there's just not enough of a point to it. Like you go to the English countryside to revisit an old home, and then I guess you just sort of, deal with drama from there. But everything just seemed very petty, and nothing seemed interesting enough for you to be like, oh my God, what's happening next? Like I got to uncover this next thing to see what she's going to complain about now, or what he's going to complain about, or whatever. Like, oh my God, this is getting juicy. Like that moment never came. It just never came. So it was just like, oh, I found this, used water bottle not water bottle because it's a metal detector, but you know what I mean. It's like a key or something, so like a key or like a piece of like a flask. Anyways, you'll find a flask, and like you pull that up, and you're like, hey, I remember Uncle John used to drink this all the time or whatever. It's like you just find a key and you'd be like, yeah, I remember Uncle Bob also. He would break into people's houses. Like he never really needed to use this or anything like that. That's probably why he was here. Or something like that. I don't know. It was just random conversations, and then like you would have conversations like 10 different ways, because you would talk through your walkie-talkie. You would also text through your phone, and you would also like talk to each other in the car. And I'm like, can't we just decide on a method of communication? Like I just don't understand. Like I don't know if that was done just to kind of give sort of like variety, so you didn't like look at the same walkie-talkie at the time, so that way it made the game feel less repetitive that way. Yeah. But the game, it didn't help. It doesn't matter, because the game is repetitive, and the game is slow and boring. And as someone who loves walking simulators, this was just not a good time. It was just, everything just felt so poor, which is weird because this is AMC we're talking about. And I know they've never really kind of delved into games before, but like, I mean, you see the budget that they have for stuff like Walking Dead. It's like, it's not like they don't have money, so it's like they couldn't have given these guys an extra. I'm not even asking for much, giving these guys an extra $20 or something, to like just kind of polish this up a little bit. It's ridiculous. But yeah, no, anyways. If you want the full review, go to gamersarms.com and check that out. It's not a good time. So unless you really have like the need for, uncovering things with a metal detector. And to be fair, like that's not something you see often. So it had that going for it. I like unique ideas like that. But it was just poorly executed and just poorly presented. And for having the lead designer of Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, behind it, I think somebody's ready to retire. So, after that, I've been playing a lot of Famicom Detective Club, The Missing Heir. Now, that was revealed a couple months ago in a Nintendo Direct, and it was like a double pack. So there's The Missing Heir, and then there's like the Lost Girl or something like that. Let me actually check, because I have them on my Switch. The Missing Heir, and the girl who sounds behind. No, the girl who stands behind. So it doesn't matter which one of these you play first, because one of them's a prequel and the other one's kind of like a main story. Now you would think you'd play the prequel first, but it really doesn't matter, because like it's, they can both be standalone. So you're completely fine just playing one or the other. And it's more like timeline thing, because the characters are different, but it's more timeline thing. So, which kind of makes one, the prequel before the other. But yeah, no, it's super, super unique. I don't think, has Nintendo really done a visual novel before? Like I can't really.
So, not that I can think of off the top of my head.
I mean, they've had ones, but not made by Nintendo necessarily.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm trying to think of. Is like, has there been one that's been like developed by them? I don't think so, actually. So, because that was like one of the first things that came to mind, and so this is sort of like a full blown remake of an NES game from like forever ago. That and the best part about this, so it is a visual novel, but it has sort of like Ace Attorney sort of mechanics to it, in which you are going to be investigating a lot of areas that you go to. You're going to be questioning people as you try to uncover the missing heir, which is you are looking for someone who's lost, basically.
Does it have any similarities to Hotel Dusk from the DS at all?
Actually,
that's
yes,
also kind of like a mystery detective type
thing.
Yeah. Honestly, now that you mention it, I would say it's more in line with that, because the thing with Ace Attorney is they kind of have like hidden object elements to them, and but this one isn't. This one's more so you're going through a sequence of menus. Now you can choose an investigate button that lets you click around anywhere on the screen, but it's not like a you're not just stuck there trying to uncover like a little mini game like you would in Ace Attorney, where you're like, okay, let me gather all the hidden evidence and stuff like that. So it's mostly through dialogue discussions and a couple of interactions with certain objects and stuff like that here. So honestly, now that you mention it, yes, I would say it's more in line with Hotel Dusk and games like Trace Memory and things like that. And there was another one that wasn't it Hotel Dusk? What was the one that's called like Room 216 or something like that on the DS?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I don't remember.
I'll have to look it up.
But games like that and games like Jake Hunter's another one like that. Jake Hunter, Spirit Detective. So, but if you enjoy any of those games, you're gonna love Famicom Detective Club. They're effectively those, and they kind of harken back to that sort of style of gameplay, which I didn't realize how much I missed, because that stuff is just great. So you have a visual novel, but with those but enough gameplay there that like I think even people who don't really dabble into too many visual novels would still like really, really enjoy it.
It looks like like Hotel Dusk on DS was published by Nintendo, but it wasn't developed by Nintendo.
Okay.
So it looks like they published a lot of those, but they didn't actually develop them.
It seems like it, yeah. Okay. But yeah, I miss all that stuff, man. Like all those sorts of games, I miss that stuff. And Famicom Detective Club is exactly that. And so, like, if you're missing that, like, absolutely pick it up. One of the games by itself is $35. Actually, yeah, like regardless of which one you choose, it's $35. But if you buy one, you can get the other one for $10 off. Now they do have a double pack also. That's $60. So either way, you're paying $60 for both. But if you don't want both right away and you just want one, it's just $35. And then when you're ready to pick up the next one, it's $25. So, so it's a cool little thing that they have. But yeah, if you're feeling some detective stuff and you can't wait for Ace Attorney Chronicles to come out, whenever that's coming out, that comes out soon, right? I think in the next month or two.
I think so. Yeah, it's very soon.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. But yeah, if you're looking forward to that, but you can't wait enough, go pick up Famicom Detective Club. They're decent length too. Like they can be long, but I know you can do, if you know what you're doing and you hit every sort of sequence or trigger correctly. I think you can beat the game in maybe like somewhere between like 3 to 4 hours probably. Otherwise, if you're playing it normally and you're going in blind for the first time, you probably give them probably 7-8 hours out of that. So
I've got to download it was originally a Famicom disk system game on the NES.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to try that on one of my on my EverDrive. It's like I can't imagine playing a game like that on the NES. So it's
crazy too, because like I'm playing this and like I know it's a full blown remake, but like I've never heard, or because it was in Japan only. Like,
yeah, they were all Japan only. Yeah, I mean, apparently there's like 3 of them.
See, I didn't know that. I didn't know that because it's like remade and localized for the first time. So, but it's, as I'm playing these, I'm like, wow, like what did these, I've been meaning to look that up. Just like, what did they look like? How did they play back then? Because, obviously the technical limitations back then made things very different, from what we can experience now. So, but even just kind of stripping away some of the some of the things and just trying to make it at its most basic. I'm still trying to think like how would you do that on the NES other than like having a bunch of text boxes with no backgrounds, and just character like pixel art. That's the most you could do, really, unless there was more to it. But
that seems to be what it was. It's like it looks like one of them was on Super Nintendo, the second one was on Super Nintendo, and then there's a third one that was on Super Nintendo. But part one was on NES and but there was the Famicom disc. It wasn't actually on a cart, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if maybe there was something different with the disc. I mean, just by a quick pull up of the picture, I'm seeing like a background and then a bunch of Japanese text that you choose from, but I don't know what it says.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Because I'm a little rusty on my Japanese.
A little, John.
Yeah,
a little.
Just a smidge.
But yeah, it's like I've always been interested in those, and I know a lot of people went crazy when those things were announced. It was like, did I miss something? I've missed something. I missed something.
something.
But go ahead, Dennis. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So like basically, effectively, I think the most impressive part, I think, of the games really is that everything is animated. Everything. So the backgrounds are animated, all the characters are animated. So when they speak to you, it's not, there's not, most visual novels typically have like static art, so everything's just kind of like there, nothing's moving. It's just the dialogue that's just kind of going along. But everything's animated, and it kind of reminds me of like, the game is very different, but like if anyone's ever played like the X-Blaze games, they're basically visual novels based off of the Blaze Blue universes, and they're fantastic, man. I love those games, but everything's animated. The backgrounds, the cutscenes, the dialogue interactions, you name it. If it's supposed to move, it will move. So it makes it feel like you're playing through an anime, really. So kind of similar to what they did for Steins Gate Elite, except for Steins Gate Elite was actually a full-blown. They basically took the anime and then just cut it into sequences where, it would fit a visual novel format. But yeah, no, everything's animated, and I think that's the most impressive part about it. It's really pretty to look at, and it's, again, if you're big into like mysteries and stuff like that, the game is amazing. And it's a Nintendo game, so you're bound to have a good time. They have a great track record, so
yeah.
So yeah, hopefully we get more like this from them, honestly, because now that I see that they can do like a visual novel, now I want more, honestly. So
yeah, sells well, they'll probably make more. I mean,
I hope it did. I hope it did. I really do. Now, in addition to that, speaking of Nintendo, this one, I don't know if it was developed by them. I'm still trying to get the answer for that, but I know it was published by them. This is their new sort of superhero published game. Now, first they did Marvel Ultimate Alliance, 2 years ago, something like that. And I know, John, you like really, really enjoyed that game, didn't you?
Yeah, I really liked it. That too? Yeah. Eric did. Eric played it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I know you guys were like really, really enjoying that one.
Yeah.
It was developed by Toy Box, but it was published by Nintendo.
Okay. So now they're going on the other side, right? Instead of Marvel, now they're doing DC, publishing a DC game. This one has had little to no marketing up to its release. We saw it on a direct, and there was like a minute of it, and then there was a couple of like trailers leading up to launch that were all like a minute each as well, but none really. I couldn't tell what type of game it was. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, it just kept showing like it was like maybe like a fighting game. I just couldn't tell.
Yeah, and it was weird because it just kind of came. They just kind of threw up on the screen there for a minute, and like it was in a montage or something.
Yeah. Well, it was like super weird too, because it's a game published by Nintendo, and not only that, but it's got DC on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's gonna sell itself, or it should, anyways. But there was absolutely no marketing behind it. It was almost like everything leading up. I feel like we saw more from Marvel's Avengers. And Square Enix was pretty hush hush about that. Leading up to release, and but I couldn't tell what type of game this was, so I was a little wary. And then on release day, I just kept looking like on Twitter and on YouTube, just like, is there any footage? Is there any like reviews up yet? But there haven't been any reviews. I don't think Nintendo sent out review codes for it actually. So, because there was nothing, the only thing I could find, which was the day after, was Famitsu. Which, if you're not familiar with Famitsu, it's a very popular Japanese column. They put up their review of it, and they gave it 4 consecutive 8s, for a total of 32 out of 40. So, which that's good. That's good. I was like, okay, all right. Now, I was already interested. I was just a little concerned because we saw nothing, right? Because I'm a big DC fan, right? I love the superheroines of DC. It's got all my favorite characters in there. I love Wonder Woman. I love Batgirl. I read the whole, Gail Simone series of that on New 52, and and even the new one with Babs Tarr during in Rebirth, and I love Batgirl. She's one of my favorite characters, and Supergirl as well, so, and you get to play not only them, but so many, other ones like Catwoman, of course, Harley Quinn, and, Star Sapphire, and so on and so forth. So I was like, well, I kept getting so confused by the constant, sort of, why are they being so shy about this? Is it because of the demographic? Is it because of the way that it looks? Which that's what it seemed like, because this one was maybe marketed more towards kids, so they're like, well, we don't need review copies and stuff like that. But I feel like so was Zoids and Transformers Battlegrounds and all those types of games, and those had review copies sent out. Ben 10 and all that stuff, those all had review copies sent out. Right. So why what are you worried about? Again, I don't understand. It's got Nintendo and it's got DC on it. Like, again, what are you worried about? So, but after seeing a couple of people on, well, not a couple, a lot actually, of people just being like, dude, like, don't sleep on this. It's actually like really, really enjoyable. I'm a grown man, and there's stuff like that. Or
maybe the price point, it is $60, which is fine. Yes. But the coverage, like you said, there hasn't been very much coverage on it. So
Right. And that's what's been keeping me worried. And then I saw like other tweets of like, look, I was thinking about getting it, but then my daughter really wanted it, so I'm gonna go pick it up for her and I'll watch her play and we'll see what happens. We'll get a kid's point of view on it, and but then the guy updated like his post, and and he was just like, dude, I kicked her off. I started playing. This game's amazing. Like he just, so he was enjoying it. The kid loved it for the little time she had on it, and so yeah, I mean, mostly from the sort of general audience, it seemed like everyone was sort of enjoying it. So and then right when I was about to take the plunge, my girlfriend surprised me with she kind of yanked my Switch away and sort of downloading it for me. So yeah, because I was going to get a physical copy, but then I started looking for physical copies and everywhere was sold out, and I was just like, how much you want to bet they probably got sent no copies, probably.
Like, here's what.
Yeah. Yeah, knowing how they do things, and I know, John, you used to work at GameStop. I used to work at GameStop. Yeah. How those types of games are, where you get maybe, especially if it's from Nintendo, you'll get 3 copies at most.
Yeah, if any. I mean, if any. There were sometimes, if you didn't have at least one pre-order, they didn't even send you one copy to put on the shelf.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So it was so we ended up just just going for the digital copy, and I'll be honest, I'm having a great time. This game's awesome. It's if you're a DC fan, it is a fantastic time. Don't let the art style fool you, even though I personally really like the art style. If you're familiar with the TV show, this has been a TV show for quite some time now, DC Superhero Girls. The game doesn't really have any relationship to it. The game is doing its own thing. It's got its own story and everything, but it's super fun, man, because like when you're not out fighting crime and stuff like that, which the game is effectively just a brawler. It feels like, I'm not gonna lie, it feels like Yakuza, like when you when you play and stuff like that. But when you're not fighting, you're effectively just kind of going around multiple hub worlds and cities, and you're walking around your school campus and stuff like that. And there's a lot of cities. I haven't unlocked them yet. I looked at the map earlier today because I haven't looked at the map yet. And because you go to the if whenever you want to move to a new location, there's like a bus stop that you go to, and you just walk up to it and you just choose where you want to go. But the cities are all huge, and like there's at first I was a little worried there wasn't going to be anything to do in them, but as you play more, you start to realize, oh, there are a lot of collectibles. So there's like these hamsters these little hamster plushies I gotta find everywhere that are put in the most ridiculous locations. There's like these little spy cameras that you gotta destroy that are put in the most ridiculous locations. They're everywhere. There's graffiti that you gotta go look for and take down, stuff that you want to take photos of, and things like that. Like there's tons to do, tons of collectibles, tons to upgrade, and you get to change your clothes too, which is a lot of fun. I like kind of character customization, so that's cool. You get to go to like a fashion shop and you get to choose between different sorts of hats and shirts and pants and things like that to kind of choose how you want to look on your days off. So but yeah, and then you can switch at will. Now you can't for the first little bit that you play the game, but eventually it's kind of like Marvel. What was it, like Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 was like that, where like you had to play certain characters for a while, but then once you got to the open part, you could switch at will to whatever you wanted to. So so DC Superhero Girls is a lot like that, and a lot of people said it was kind of like, it reminded them of Persona, which made me laugh because it's like, and they're not entirely wrong, because you're kind of going to school and you're doing that on your daytime, and then at nighttime you're fighting crime, and you have a whole little sort of like flip side to your life. But yeah, no, it's super enjoyable. I know a lot of people were worried about the price point. So far, I think it feels like a $60 game. I know it may not look like it, but I am content with it. Again, I'm having a much better time with this than I did with Biomutant, and that's a $60 game. I think this is well worth $60 versus Biomutant. But yeah, no, it's worth checking out if you're a DC fan, and it's really, really enjoyable. Like, it is kind of like open world-esque, and tons to do, and it's super enjoyable, super cute, and yeah, it's just a good time. Like, it's a feel-good time, I haven't been frustrated with it yet. It's just fun. So
yeah, I was interested in it, because I'm a DC guy. I mean, yeah, I'm wearing a Captain America shirt. I'm not a. I prefer DC over Marvel, but I do like Marvel, But no, I was interested.
Hey, why hate on one or the other? If you can love both, then you got like a whole lot more than just narrowing one side or the other.
I'm that guy that subscribes to Marvel Unlimited and DC Comics Universe, or whatever they call it. So
yeah, DC Universe.
Yeah, I've got tons of comic books to read, and I don't care. I'll read both of them. It's fine. I can like both. It's okay.
Both sides are calling you a traitor.
That'd both sides are calling me a traitor. Pick one. You can't like both.
I don't know where to go.
I'm having fun over here. I don't know what your guys' problem is.
Yeah, y'all go right ahead. Now, that Famicom Detective Disc, did they not make a physical version of it? Is it digital only?
Yeah, it's digital only, unfortunately. Otherwise, that's definitely the type of game that I would probably love. I love having physical visual novels, because since they're like books, I like seeing them on the shelf also. Yeah. And usually I don't think I've ever come across a visual novel that had not good art anyways. So since they have beautiful art, I love to look at them too. So this is digital only.
Makes me wonder if down the road they're not pulling one where they'll be like, oh, it's only digital, and then 3 months later, oh, here's the physical copy of it.
I would hope so, just because but I would hope so, just because it is a $60 game if you get both. Both of the packages, or both of the games. So I don't know, I've always had a problem with paying $60 for digital only content. Now, if there's a physical version and I still opt for digital, I know it sounds weird, but then that's usually fine if there's still a physical. But if you're digital only, I don't know, it just seems weird to price it that heavy when you don't have to worry about manufacturing costs or anything like that.
Yeah, it is. So, that's why I wondered. I just kind of just looked it up real quick, and Amazon only had digital only. I was like, I didn't realize that was a digital only game. So.
Yeah, hopefully they do it. But I think this is also one of those games where, this is Nintendo's kind of first time with a visual novel. And I think because that sort of has sort of a niche crowd, they probably weren't sure. And, Nintendo likes to be sure, so, so they just kind of opted for digital only at the moment. So.
Makes sense. So. All right. Now, the last one I've been looking forward to too. I actually forgot it came out.
Yeah, so Wonder Boy, Asha, and Monster World. I'm actually writing a review on this, so I kind of give you guys like a preview of what we're dealing with here. So it's. Let me just put it this way: it is an enjoyable game. Let me preface it with that. I like what I've been playing so far. However, this is a poor man's Shantae. It is effectively what this game is. It is a poor man's Shantae, but here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. It costs more than Shantae. That's the craziest part about this game. But if you're familiar with Shantae, it more or less plays the same. Also, but since it's part of the Wonder Boy series that has been around since Sega Genesis and the Master Systems and stuff like that, this is a full blown remake, and it is a 1-1 remake. So don't expect anything different or new other than the its sort of stylized approach and cutscenes, of course, like that, more sort of elaborate cutscenes. But otherwise, the way it plays, the way it sort of the design of the dungeons and the bosses and everything like that is effectively the same. Now, the bosses are all, they tend to recycle. The bosses that I've experienced so far, they all tend to recycle, which is not a good look. And then the dungeons are all like super easy. The backtracking, there's just way too much of, like it almost unnecessarily so, to the point where it becomes tedious. And again, it's not like the game is particularly difficult, but it just is odd. Also, since I'm playing on the Switch, it looks and runs great for the most part. There's like some it gets choppy at sections, but otherwise it's fine. The only part it gets really bad for some reason is when you go to save. When you save, I don't know why, because it takes you to a whole different sort of like menu and whatnot. When you save, it chugs like crazy. Like there's huge input lag, and because when you hit the save button, the screen goes black for a second, and then it takes you to this sort of like room with all these sort of like genie, sort of like, I forgot what you call those.
Yeah,
the stuff the genies come out of. Those little
lamp.
I guess the lamps. I guess yeah. But the genie lamps, right? So there's a bunch of those, and you have like 12 save slots. It's a lot. And for some reason, I don't know why. It's not like there's like a crazy animation when you save or anything like that. It just takes you to this room full of genie lamps, and it just starts to chug, and it starts to go at like 10 frames a second. It's crazy. I don't like it's bad. It's like it chugs, and like I can't. Very few times, like usually in games, I love to save because obviously if you die or something, you have to pick up from your last save.
Right.
You want so you want to save as often as possible, especially as someone who plays a lot of RPGs. Like, saving is your best friend. Saving is one of those things that I do in this game where I'm just like, I can't wait to get this over with. Just please, I just want to like when I feel like I need to save, I'm like, man, fine, forget it. Let me just go ahead and save, because it really is just a grueling process just to save. It's that bad. But the game itself is fine though. It's a cute game for $40. I know. No, we're good.
I know you compared it to Shantae, saying, but I'll have some gripe with that, because this game was from 1994, and that was before Shantae. So.
True, very true. Actually.
If anything, Shantae is like this game.
that is true. Fair enough. Shantae wasn't too long afterwards, right? Was Shantae like 96?
2002 is when it was.
Even for the Game Boy Color? For the Game Boy Color?
Yeah, the first one was Shantae in 2002. And it was for, I think it was for Game Boy, Game Boy Color. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but
it's the only gripe. That's the only gripe I will take with your.
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of like polish and design, I think most people, because Wonder Boy, to be fair, has been dormant for a very long time.
Yeah, and that's what I don't understand with these Sega games here lately. I mean, this is Wonder Boy is a Sega property, but they've not done anything with it forever. And like now, all these companies are coming to Sega going, "Hey, we want to make this game," and Sega just goes, "Yeah, go ahead and make it. You have our blessing. You can use the name. You can use all this," and then they just do it, and then they get rave reviews. So it's like, Sega, why don't you just say, "Well, okay, you make this game and we'll publish it," And I don't know.
The only time that happened. to my recollection, from all these games that have come out lately, from between Wonder Boy and like Streets of Rage and stuff like that, the only game that they did that with, it seems like, was Sonic Mania, where they're like, okay, like we'll work with you on that one. But everything else, it just seems like they're just like, oh yeah, take it. Yeah, take it, do whatever. Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. It's just really weird to me that.
Well, to make things even weirder for something in the case of Wonder Boy, where it's like the Dragon's Trap, I know was really well received on the Switch. Yeah. Now this one, or they've had, so I think this one's the third or fourth remake. I can't remember so far of all the Wonder Boy games.
I think it's the third. I think
this one in particular, they've all had different developers and publishers. I don't know why. So there's an inconsistency to the quality of each one of these games, and just the way that they look and the way that they feel, and it kind of drives me crazy. Now, to make things even more confusing, Wonder Boy, Asha, and Monster World, by the way, no boy in sight.
No, no.
There is no Wonder Boy in sight. Yeah. There's Wonder Girl. I don't know why they didn't just call it Wonder Girl. It just seems kind of.
I think because she is from the Wonder Boy universe, they felt they had to. Yeah, because the original one they did that too. They had to put Wonder Boy in front of it because I think it was it was 1994. Well, we just can't put Wonder Girl. Nobody's going to know who that is. We need to put Wonder Boy on there to make it marketable, or noticeable, I guess, recognizable. Yeah. So.
It's and then what's crazy is like it's usually known, isn't it known as like Monster World in Japan?
Yeah.
So like it's Monster World in Japan. Now I saw this because I like to, every time I review a game, I like to do research on it, like look at the history and stuff like that, just in case I myself am not too familiar with it. Now this was killing me. I went on the sort of release sort of like history here, and so this one is. Which one's this one? Asha and Monster World. So this one's a remake of Monster World 4, right? Now, the one before it, The Dragon's Trap, it was Wonder Boy 3, The Dragon's Trap, right? Even though it's labeled here as Wonder Boy, The Dragon's Trap. Right. Now, Wonder Boy in Monster World, which came out in 1991, is also known as Wonder Boy 5 Monster World 3. That's all in the same title.
Yeah.
You're Wonder Boy 5 while simultaneously being Monster World 3, even though you're called in Japan Monster World and localized as Wonder Boy.
Yeah. I don't know. I always shake my head at things like that and I just go on. It's like, okay.
I'm so done with everything. Like looking at this release was making me just go crazy, and I'm just over it. Yeah. I'm just over it. And then they have Monster Boy and Monster Land, and then like Monster Lair, Wonder Boy 3, and it's not Monster World anymore. And then they went back to Monster World for the next one. I don't know. I'm over it.
Yeah. It's confusing.
Yeah, it really does. And I've never understood that either.
No, so I made mention of that in the review as I continue to write it, but it is a headache. Let me tell you. So now my only real gripe with this game, again, it feels janky in a lot of areas, but overall it's enjoyable. Like if you like side-scrolling platformers, and this one has like some Metroidvania sort of trickled in, it's. Yeah, it'll give you that fix, Now, however, the only problem is this game actually is packaged with the original Monster World, whichever one this one is, Monster World 4, I think, whatever this remake is. However, you can only get that with the physical copy of the Switch version. It comes on the cartridge. It does not come with the digital version of the game for some stupid reason. And on the PlayStation version, instead of being physically on the disc, what they do is they give you a code to download separately for that game. Now, that just tells me that you can, or that you did rather, make it available digitally. So why is it not available digitally, and why do you limit having that sort of, people being able to play Monster Boy, with physical only releases? It just seems weird to me. So,
yeah, it does. It's very strange.
For the same price, mind you. It'd be one thing if it was $5 more or $10 more for a physical edition, but it's $40 whether you get it digitally or physically. Except the digital version, you're literally you're losing content. effectively. So
sense.
I don't know, but overall, I mean, it's enjoyable, So, but is it worth $40? No, maybe for a physical copy because you get the original, But but is it worth 40 digitally? No. I think your money's probably better spent, somewhere else, or a lot of the old Shantae games. Matter of fact, I think all of them now are all ported onto the Switch. So if you want to just get literally all the old ones for $40, because I think they're either $5 or $10, depending on which one they are, you're good to go.
Unless you want to get the physical versions of them, then you got.
Well, yeah. But yeah, that's my list. That's everything.
All right, cool. Nathaniel, tell us about Mass Effect, because that's all I see here.
It's like I have a much shorter list, but a very lot of games.
Yeah, a lot of games.
It's like last time I had finished Mass Effect 1 and was partway into 2. This time I finished 2, I finished 3, and started Andromeda.
Yeah.
So I've been just binging out on Mass Effect just because I've forgotten how much I love this universe. Well, not forgotten, but just like being back in is just like, oh yes, I want to just consume all of it right now. Just give me all the Mass Effect. And playing them back to back is really, really interesting because you see the kind of like evolution and progression of just kind of like what they're doing with each game, the mechanical differences where they swap like buttons a couple times where like, okay, you have to get used to this now because they switched it up or whatever. It's kind of really fun playing them back to back that way. And how they've gotten faster as they go. So, like, Mass Effect 1 is, much slower kind of combat and everything. Even with all the, like, stuff they've changed in the Legendary Edition, it's still very slow. And then 2, it's like, hey, let's make it a little more action-y. But it's still a lot more about you have to sit and, behind cover a lot. And then kind of as you progress and power up in that game, you can maybe get out of that a little bit depending on what kind of character class you're playing or something. Yeah. And then 3, it's just like, nah, you don't have to stay in cover unless you're specific types, but there are certain abilities for some of the classes, like what I play, that will recharge your shield. So you could just like dive in and just start going nuts after you like level up a little bit in there. But yeah, like Mass Effect 2 is really, really good. It's my least favorite Mass Effect game, which is really, really weird.
Yeah.
Well, at least of the trilogy of like the original like 3 games.
It's very controversial.
That come in Legendary. Yeah, like a lot of people, if you say Mass Effect 2 is going to be their favorite one, partly I think because a lot of people started with Mass Effect 2, so they have that nostalgia kick of like, wow, this is the first time I was exposed to Mass Effect, so you get all of that packaged in with Mass Effect 2 being, it's a great game.
Right.
Whereas, I was introduced to the universe with the first one, so that's where all that kind of nostalgia of just like diving into the universe, learning about all the different, aliens and all the cultures and all the different, planets and stuff was from that game. But yeah, I think having gone through them now, I would rank it 3, 2, 1. They definitely got better as they went with these. Certainly mechanically, but even just like if I was doing it just on the storylines, it would be 3, 1, 2.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's just maybe I don't click with the Dirty Dozen thing that 2 is doing as much as the different, the whole kind of like, you're exploring space, trying to chase down the bad guy stuff from 1, or the kind of like war storyline of 3 and gathering all of your, allies to fight in that game. It's kind of like a war story. I don't know. Maybe I just don't vibe with the whole like get the Suicide Squad together and let's go do this thing. Like 2, it's still great. I love it. It's like it's really weird trying to rank 3 really great games, right?
Right. That's usually when I rank them. I just say the Mass Effect trilogy. I
mean, you kind of have to a little bit with that, just because it does connect together so much. Yeah. And if you played just Mass Effect 3 on its own, it wouldn't have quite the same impact as having played all 3 of them. Yeah. But even if you did just play Mass Effect 3 and were confused as hell as what was going on, it would still, I think, be the best game of the 3, like put together, just as far as just like mission structure and just how polished it is, the way the combat works, all that stuff. But like 2 is still really, really good. 3 is hands down the absolute best game for one reason. they got rid of the stupid I cannot sprint after 3 steps of mechanic that the first 2 games had. Like, even in combat, but in combat, out of combat, you try to sprint, it's like, whoa, oh, I'm this real elite soldier that has really terrible lungs.
Yeah, no, right?
And then you get to Mass Effect 3, and it's just like, I'm sprinting everywhere. Yeah. I had lots of cardio in between games, and I'm fine. Like, it just cracks me up. I was like, because I'd forgotten that. So when I started playing Mass Effect 3, I was just like, oh, let's try sprinting around, and then just like, wait, it's not limiting me. Yeah. Oh, this is awesome. I'm free. The shackles have come off, and now I can run everywhere if I want to. Which I actually do when I'm just... Because, like, if you're in combat, it's a full-on sprint, but if you're out of combat, it's more of like a kind of jog. But the walking thing... The animation in 3 is a little bit weird for your walk, because it's just, I don't know, it's just something like one of those weird video game walks that feels just slightly weird, like you're moving too fast. The body's moving too fast for how fast it's actually walking or something. I don't know. It just felt weird to me. But when you're jogging, it feels good. Plus, you're going faster anyway. Right. So it's like, haha. I'm Commander Shepard and I got business. So don't bug me. I'm running over here. But it was fun going through like Mass Effect 2. I had not played the Arrival DLC. Was the only DLC on that game that I had not played. It was also super fun going through Lair of the Shadow Broker again, because that DLC pack is awesome.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
But one of the like best things was I had played none of the DLC for 3. Because I played Mass Effect 3. When it came out, I finished it. I loved the ending, even though the internet hated it. And I never went back and played anything from that game after they even did like the extended ending, which I'm going to have to look up what that is, because like it didn't feel like... Going through, it's like, this feels like what I remember that they did at the end of this game. Yeah. What did they extend, right? But I don't know. Like, that whole trilogy does a really good job of building and building and building, and you get to the 3rd game, and like every single character that you've like loved from the first 2 games that is in the 3rd game, depending on how you did in the 2nd game. Any of the characters that are still there by that point get their moment to shine. Some of them get more than one, but everybody gets at least one moment that you're just like, oh yes, that's awesome. Whether that's like an awesome action moment, a really cool, just like fun, touching conversation moment, something that's like, yeah, this is why I love that character. They do such a good job of doing that with like even some of the smaller ones. Like even, you know, the doctor who's in the clinic on the infirmary on the Normandy, Dr. Chakwas, she gets moments. Like, all this stuff, and they do this really good job of building kind of like, the desperation of like, we have this desperate fight, we have to do it, we don't think we're going to win, we don't think we can pull it off, and like, you keep gathering all these little things, and you get to the end, it's very much a good war story kind of thing. Unless you play the Citadel DLC in the middle of all of it. Because that was the very last piece of content they put out for that game. It's meant to more be like, you've already finished this game and you're coming back to this to just kind of have fun. Yeah. So if you've never played it before and you're going through it, you're just like, this is so weird. It's just like we just like have this whole thing building up and then we just take a break to do this thing, which is what it was meant to be. So despite the weird pacing issues, that like DLC is great, because it's very much BioWare being a bit tongue-in-cheek, a bit winking at the audience, at the camera, being like, yeah, we're in on this. We know all the memes you've made about this game. We know all this and that. Yeah. We're going to make a bunch of jokes related to all this different stuff. Just the actual, like, because it's kind of like 2 halves almost. You have kind of like the whole plot half, and then like the second half of that DLC is just kind of like a new area of the Citadel that you can kind of run around and explore and hang out with your crew in different times, and then you throw a party at the end and invite who you want to invite, which why wouldn't you invite everybody? Like, come on. And so it's just like, all of it is just very much, this is the fan service, thank you for being with us for kind of 3 full games DLC pack, which was awesome. I'd always heard good things about it, but I'd never played it. Right. There's also the Omega add-on and the Leviathan add-on for that game that I've never played before. Both of those are really good too. Like, Mass Effect has a very good DLC track record for the whole series. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think out of all of them, there's like one of them that was kind of just blah, and it was the one that they lost the source code to, so I'm not sad about it.
Yeah,
like,
that one was.
Pinnacle Station from the first game was just kind of like, because it was kind of like a weird. It wasn't even really story based all that much, although they tried to put some in it, if I remember right. I'd have to go back and look up the details, but it was very much more of like, hey, here, play around in this universe some more by defeating some waves of enemies and stuff, kind of like add-on thing that was like, you could have, like, we wanted to have some content, but it's, if you miss out on it, you're not, feeling too bad about it. Whereas pretty much every other single piece of DLC for the entire series, you feel bad for missing out on it, at least the add-on stuff.
Yeah.
Because I also had the DLC add-on character in Mass Effect 3 that I had not played with before. Right. That's just a full-on other character, which is different because Mass Effect 2 also had those that were kind of like pre-order DLC or something.
Yeah.
But they have basically kind of their one big loyalty mission that you have unlocked as soon as you get them. And you don't actually have interactable dialogue. You can go to them and, they'll say some stuff to you, but they don't have any like dialogue trees in that game. Whereas like the DLC character that you could totally miss out on, like I did if you bought, the game at launch, and it was like, I don't remember if you had to pre-order it specifically from somewhere or where you got that from. But yeah, it's a full-on other crew member that you can put in squads and go talk to them, and it's very interesting and super ties into the Mass Effect lore and everything. Very interesting. I hate him. I found out that I hate this character so much, which I think was kind of on purpose.
Yeah.
Because of who he is and where he comes from, people will have specific expectations. Player and even characters in the game have specific expectations of what this character is, and they're directly the opposite, and they're just the biggest dick. Yeah. They're such a jerk character. I think that you were meant to not like this character at all.
Yeah.
On purpose, no matter what.
Right.
Like, on purpose, no matter what. Or at the very least, just be like, oh man, they wrote this character to be such a jerk, and they kind of have that reacted to it. Because, man, most characters in all of the games be like, even the ones I don't like as much, be like, yeah, I'll go talk to them just so I can get all their cool backstories and dialogue and everything. Every time I walk by the door that character's in, I'm just like, do I really want to talk to him? I'll do it later.
I'll leave.
It's like, I don't like you. Why would I talk to you? My Commander Shepard would just like, look at the door and just be like, nah, walk away.
I'm good.
I'll go talk to Talia again, or Garrus, or anyone else but you. Now, I'm being vague because in case you haven't played it, it still is kind of cool to figure out what that character is in that game if you hadn't heard of it. But yeah, it's like, I get it. I'm glad that I have seen that character now and understand where they come from. And I'm like, all right, if I play this game in the future, I will care even less.
Yeah.
I just won't talk to you. Because you're such a jerk. You're mean to me. You're mean to everybody else. You think you're the best thing ever. And it's just like, nah. There's other characters that are kind of like that, but they at least have redeeming qualities, or they're just, at least to me, way more charismatic and fun. Right. I'm sure there's plenty of people who like that character. It's just, for me, I was just like, bounced right off of it, just like, nope. Nope, I have all these other awesome characters over here. I'll hang out with them. You can stay in your corner over there.
Yeah.
Trying to think, what was about? Oh yeah, like, so they have the fun thing that they have that's interesting is the Omega, and then even the Citadel DLC to a point is kind of like a weird split off where once you start it, you're doing it. And so, like, when you do the Omega kind of DLC, you're off on your own story. It's just Shepard without any of your normal Normandy crew, with some temporary people for the whole run of DLC.
Right.
And it's pretty big. So is like the Leviathan one feels more like this is a quest line from the main game that we cut out that has has multiple locations, and then they ended up putting it in as DLC, which is very sad because it ties into Mass Effect lore in a very cool way.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh wow, how did that get cut out from the game? Or was it feels like that? It'd be interesting to see if that's actually the case, or if it's like, oh wait, no, we made this after the fact. But it feels so intrinsic to like the Mass Effect universe and where all the things in that came from, and kind of it's very lore heavy of like, oh hey, this is how the universe got to this point. They're like, how is it ever not just in the game itself? It feels so integral. Like, wait, what? I mean, I guess I didn't technically miss it when I played it the first time around, just because I didn't know what I was missing. But now that I was thinking, I was like, why would they cut this out? This thing's very important. Why would they have this as a DLC add-on? It's like, it's cool now that anyone who has this version of it will just have it in there to play.
Yeah.
The weird thing about these is if you don't know what's DLC, they don't do a super great job of labeling them. Because they didn't go in and like if you know what the packs are called, you can figure it out usually. But so like the Omega one, if you start it and you're in it like until it's done. So if you didn't know you're going in for a whole long run of this weird like side quest DLC add-on thing, you'd be like, oh well, I'm doing this now.
All right.
But it's cool because I don't know. I think that one is probably my favorite of the Mass Effect 3 DLCs, just because you get to hang out with the character that's voiced by Carrie-Anne Moss, which is a cool character from 2 and 3. And then they had a really cool, the extra kind of other character that they put in for that quest was really cool too. And it's just like, it's a good example of like, this would have been a good DLC add-on if I played it after I'd finished the game too, because it's its own encapsulated thing. But it also, if you're playing it in line with the game, also makes sense too. So
yeah,
it's just, if you didn't know that you're being locked in, that would be a little difficult because none of the rest of the game is structured that way. But yeah, like the Citadel DLC is also very good though too, because there's so much fun just character stuff where you get to meet like all the major characters pretty much that you've had in Mass Effect to this point all at once, all together, whether in the first game, the second game, third game, all 3 games, whatever. It's just like, here's everybody, go, let's have fun.
Yeah.
And let's make fun of Shepard for saying, what is it? I should go.
Yeah.
I was like cackling out loud. They make a joke about that because it's just kind of like at the end of kind of one of the missions, and it's like a scene, and it's just like, do I really sound like that? And then they're making fun of them in game, so you can tell it's just BioWare making fun of like people who point that out from the first 2 games, mostly the first one.
Yeah, the first one a lot.
Then there's a thing where they're calling back to how Rex in the first game just says Shepard to you a lot when you're closing out the dialogue. So they have like a joke on that in there, like all these little things that like, hey, we know you love this. Here's all the little weird, goofy things. We're gonna like make a joke out of it or just pay homage to it or anything. It's just very much just like, hey, we know you love this universe. We love it too. Here's our final thing, our love letter to Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Even though technically it happens before the end of the game.
Right.
But because it was the last DLC we put out, it's technically the last. Until Andromeda came out. But yeah, as far as like the Shepard trilogy, it was like the last piece of content they put out. Like, I don't know. Mass Effect 3, just like, there's no stinker in it at all, anything. Like all the side quests, there's not even that much really of side quests because it's very much all main gather your forces kind of things. So you can't really do side stuff too much in that game. But it's just, you can tell that they had perfected what they were doing at that point. Because like, especially, it's very, very much faster combat than Mass Effect 2. Like Mass Effect 1 is slow. Mass Effect 2 speeds it up some because you have like the reload mechanic that they added in and the powers play better. But with Mass Effect 3, even better, especially if you're playing Vanguard like me. Vanguard for life. Because it's like, I want that biotic charge where I'm like going like 50 feet across the battlefield, teleporting and slamming into somebody, and then either shooting them with a shotgun or punching them in the face or finishing them off with another biotic power. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
It's even better in Andromeda. I've played about 3 or 4 hours of that, and I was like, oh yeah, that's how they switched it up. So you can have basically kind of like they map the powers to the shoulder buttons. And so it's either left button, right button, or together. So you can have kind of like 3 of your powers slotted at once. They don't do classes as much in Andromeda. It's a lot more of a mix and match of you can put points into a bunch of different things, and eventually it's just what you want to equip.
I really wanted to play that, and I just never got around to it.
Yeah, I never.
I know. It's been free on.
It's so much fun. The other thing that Andromeda adds that the other games didn't have is you have a basically a jump pack on your back, like basically a hover pack. So you can like jump in the air, and if you aim down sights, you'll hover for a few seconds. But you can also get, I think, some other stuff that'll upgrade that later. But then you also have an air dash, so you can like jump up and dash around. The dash also works on the ground. It's just you're a lot more mobile in that game than even in Mass Effect 3, where you're already pretty mobile.
Are there long elevator rides for no reason?
I don't think so. Like Andromeda is much more like going for open world a little bit, but it's more like here's like a few different big maps. It's a lot like Mass Effect Andromeda is very much like Dragon Age Inquisition, sort of in structure, where they have like a lot of big areas and you're running around them doing kind of like your main quests and your side quests. A little bit. Like there's differences for sure too. But Andromeda has, was it the Nexus is their space station in that game, and I've just gotten there.
You said you enjoyed the combat in that one, like the best.
Yeah, the combat in 3 and Andromeda are like my two favorites, just because it's a lot more fluid and fun. And it gives you a lot more options where you can like do a lot more different things with it and play to how each player wants to play it. Whereas with 2, they started going that direction some, but it didn't open up as much until like 3 in Andromeda. But yeah, I don't know. Andromeda is really, really good. It had all those bugs and things that plagued it at launch, and it was definitely very much like Cyberpunk, the most recent example of big game comes out too early because because publisher wants the money, so put the game out now, guys. But they patched it out, and man, playing through all of the DLC from the Legendary Edition of the trilogy makes me sad that they scrapped all DLC plans for Andromeda, because I'm just like, wait, what could they have done? Because some of the best Mass Effect content has been in the DLC pack. So what would they have done for Mass Effect Andromeda? Because it's a really cool idea of how to kind of reboot the series a bit with new characters of like, hey, this is like 600 something years later because all these people were traveling through space to get to a completely different galaxy. So we have all these different new stuff, and we're trying to establish colonies, but there's this alien race here who's causing trouble that doesn't like us being here, and then there's all this weird big mystery, and there's all this cool stuff that they set up that reminds me a lot of Mass Effect 1, and that like, hey, here's some of the world building stuff we're doing, and then we'll take off from there. And now we're never going to get that. But I'm sure whatever they do for the next Mass Effect game will still be fun. Yeah. Regardless of how much it ties or does not tie into Andromeda.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
It's definitely
what to do with it.
Andromeda is really good. It's way better than its reputation would have you believe, but it's also, it doesn't have any of your favorite characters in it.
Right.
And you're playing a completely different kind of character than what Commander Shepard was. So you don't have kind of like any of the like military tie-ins and stuff like that you would have from the original trilogy, and you're not like some big, super famous kind of character. You're kind of building your reputation as you go in that game.
Yeah.
You're like the Pathfinder, which
I'm definitely gonna have to play it. Hands down.
Well, it's on Game Pass.
If you like Mass Effect, it's worth playing.
Yeah, and you can buy it for like $5 used if you want a physical edition of it.
Yeah, I think I bought it on Steam for was it $30? I don't remember. I'd have to look it up, but I mean, it's a big game. So I think I played the trilogy 125-ish hours total for all 3 games. I think when I played Andromeda the first time, I did about almost everything with maybe 60-70 hours. Wow. So Andromeda is a very big game, which some of that is good, some of that is, okay, guys, you could have condensed this a little bit. It's got a little bit of bloat here, but there's lots of big open world type games that could say the same thing. So it's not like it's alone in that.
Right, yeah.
But I'm just very much high on the Mass Effect train, and I will be until I finish Andromeda, and I'll be like, oh man, now what? Maybe I'll go play the Dragon Age games. Who knows?
Yeah, there you
just
go.
Keep going with BioWare.
Yeah, why not?
Put off the inevitable.
The good
and then
BioWare.
There's no bad BioWare. Those games do not exist. Wink, wink.
Yeah. Okay.
What is this anthem you're talking about? Is this like we're going to a sports game and they're singing the anthem? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
I mean, anthem. I'm sure it probably is fine enough with all the stuff that they've done to it, maybe, but it's just not the kind of game I want from BioWare.
Yeah.
It's like, no, give me your story-based RPGs that don't have all this live service mess tied into it, which maybe they'll get back to that with Dragon Age and Mass Effect, it sounds like. We'll see. Maybe we'll learn more soon. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. All right, Eric.
Don't get me started.
What have you been playing?
I haven't played anything. I mean, I don't know. I really haven't been gaming very much recently. Just some Cold War stuff, trying to finish up a Easter egg in the season 3 of Zombies, and it's pretty challenging. There are some nice guides out, but it takes a couple hours, and we got to kind of schedule for the 4 of us to play, and so try that. It's challenging, but the only other thing I've really been playing is R-Type Final 2 Switch. Got a review code for that, and if you like R-Type, it's a pretty good game. It visually looks really nice. Lots of different ships to pick from. Tons of different game modes you can game mode difficulties you can unlock, and there's some cool like artwork and things like that. I am terrible at R-Type. I like shmups, but with R-Type, I always forget that you can blow up if you go up. If you hit the top or the bottom, and I'm always like, no, and the space is like really tight. One thing I noticed too is like with this game, the load times are longer than they should be. This game is not very big, and it's interesting when you die. It's about a 10 to 15 second jump back into the checkpoint. It seems a little slow. I think it'd be like 5 seconds, but that's my only gripe. It's fun. Controls are pretty tight. I'm not, like I said, I'm not very good, but it is fun to play.
Yeah.
Played a lot of R-Type, like Game Boy Color and Super Nintendo back in the day. So, but that's it. I don't have much to talk about.
Yeah, it's like I just haven't had much time either. But now that I'm done with vacation and off the road for the most part, I should have more time to play. So
really doing all those other than video game things.
Yeah, I know, right? I've been watching a lot more like TV and shows and reading a lot more.
Yeah, we watched all of Kim's Convenience in like 2 weeks, I think, something like that.
I want to watch that.
It's great. It is great. It's too bad it got, it ended the way it ended because they really needed another season to kind of wrap stuff up. But
did it not get like renewed? Is it just like a one and done?
The showrunners left. They said they were done at the end of season 5, and even though it got renewed for season 6, then all the producers went, well, we don't know what to do with it, so we're just canceling it. So they just canceled it. So there was a couple of major plot points that were never tied up, but it ended at a point where they could have just said, well, we're not going to do another season. It was okay. But it is a great little, if you want a show that's for the most part clean and kind of family friendly but funny as all get out. Yeah, it's definitely.
I really like the cast that's in it, actually.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that the one dude who was the son is Shang-Chi. I didn't realize it until we were about halfway through. I'm like, I'm going to see what all these guys have done, and we were watching the show, and I told her, oh, well, the son's Shang-Chi. I think he'll be okay. I think everything will be all right for him, And I knew the dude that played the dad because he was in The Mandalorian, a couple episodes. He was the new Republic policeman that was flying around every once in a while that would pop in. That was where I went, well, what's he been in? I'm like, well, what's this Kim's Convenience show? Oh, it's on Netflix. Let's watch it. Yeah, we actually that's all we watched when we were watching stuff on vacation. We finished season 5 came out Wednesday and we finished it Thursday night. So it was like I like little half-hour short 13 episode seasons of sitcoms.
Those are great, yeah.
Those are my favorite. I wish more American shows did that. Sometimes I don't care for the 22, 25 show half-hour seasons.
That's most of them now, really. Yeah. Like, there's less and less doing that because there's less and less people watching stuff just on TV, and it's all stuff going to streaming networks, which like the shorter runs anyway.
Yeah,
so.
I like the shorter runs. It's just nicer.
It lets you stay more focused when they're
Yeah.
like writing a season, whereas you get to 22 episodes, like you have to have a lot of stuff to fill that out. Otherwise, it's just gonna literally throw filler at it, and nobody wants that.
Half-hour sitcoms are okay that way, but like the DC shows, that's kind of why I stopped watching the DC shows, was because they were 22, 24 episodes long, and they would have a main storyline through the whole season, and then like the first 4 episodes would be this, and then 2 episodes would be nothing to do with that. Then they'd come back, and then they'd come back, and then they come. And it's just like, dudes, don't. And then when you're trying to watch 5 of those shows that are 22 episodes piece, it's like an hour long on top of it. It's just like,
it's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. It's like, forget it. I'm out.
Yeah.
I can relate. We've been like rewatching Game of Thrones for some reason. I don't remember why we started rewatching it. It's like okay, I guess. So it's that. But I need to watch that show Invincible.
Yeah, I've watched the first couple episodes of it. It's pretty good. I like it a lot. Those are things that Nikki usually don't like, so I'll watch them when I'm on the road or something like that. But yeah, next I think we're going to watch Schitt's Creek. I think that's the
yeah.
I think we're going to continue our tour of Canadian sitcoms and watch Schitt's Creek.
That one's pretty funny.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get into the news real quick. Not tons to talk about because next week starts E3 stuff next weekend. So they did have the Horizon Forbidden West State of Play. I didn't watch it live, but I did go back and watch the VOD in 4K. It looks really pretty. It's more Horizon.
As someone who's played the crap out of that game, that was super exciting because I could tell like all the subtle things. Like if you're just looking at it, like this looks like Horizon, but I'm like, oh, that's different. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
The water was really pretty.
It reminds me a lot of the first times they were showing the first Horizon game, where it was very much a strict demo of like, here we'll go 3 here, and then here's the T-Rex looking thing at the end. It's big and exciting. Whereas this one was kind of similar. You're going through like a whole like path, a little bit of storyline. Like, oh, here's the big enemy at the end. Let's take it down and show off different gameplay things on how we did it. And the facial animations are way better than the first game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and this is one of those games that's going to come out on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, and
it's gonna not be good on 4 as far as looks. Like, come on, like how do you look at that and think that could run on PS4? Come on.
Well, and
a lot of people complaining that it would potentially hold the games back.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was just getting ready to say. So many people said, that's going to hold the games back. I don't see where that's really held the game back that much at all. I mean, as far as
that makes sense if you're talking about a third-party game that they just want to put it on all the different platforms. That usually will hold it back. Like say and less like that nowadays, but like Assassin's Creed, sometimes like if it's cross-platform, they might not be able to crank it up as much or something. But if it's the first-party ones, I don't see that at all. Because like just look at some of the first-party PS4 games on PS5, where all they've done is up the frame rate, and it's already like, those still look very, very good.
Right.
So throw in some of the nicer like lightings and some ray tracing on top of that the PS5 can do, and it's gonna look really, really good. Well, and maybe there's some stuff where it's kind of like PC graphics thing where they just toggle off like, oh, you can't run this and this, and then the PS4 will take some of the geometry down a little bit, and then it'll run. Who knows? We'll find out when it comes out.
Well, and it's like I've always said, it's this generation is diminishing returns. It's not all about a big graphics leap from 4 to 5. This is more frame rate. It's more 60 frames a second.
I'd say it's still a big leap, but the leap is not in things that Joe Schmo could see at a glance in a Target store.
Like it was from 360 or PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4, even then it was a slow jump. Maybe I should even go back to PlayStation 2 to PlayStation 3, maybe that would be more of a big leap.
Yeah, I saw right away from 2 to 3.
Yeah,
but 3 to 4, you saw it, but it wasn't as I think as prominent, and then certainly not now. I mean, I still think
it's more on.
I think it's not that there isn't a. Yeah, I don't think it's not that there's a big jump possible. I think that it's taking longer for studios to be able to get to that and put those games out, and those games are showing up later in the generation. So, like, looking at a Last of Us Part 2 or Ghost of Tsushima that just came out at the very end of the this generation compared to what if those games came out at the very beginning of PS4 cycle, and then that might have been feeling like a little bit bigger of a leap. But even then, like Uncharted 4 was fairly soon, and that game looks really good. So who knows? Like it's. I don't know. I get excited about some of the more subtle things that show up, like the better lighting in games now that it makes all the difference. If you have a good lighting system, you can make even not as detailed polygon models and stuff look really good because the lighting's good.
Yeah, to me, it's the HDR, it's the 4K, and it's the 60 frames per second. You give me that on a PlayStation 4 game, on a PlayStation 5, or Xbox One game on a Series X. And I'm fine with that. And to me, it's like, okay. I mean, look at Ratchet and Clank, the older Ratchet and Clank. All they did was they cranked the frame rate up, and holy crap, it plays like a different game.
That surprises me with how much quick action that Ratchet is. I had no idea the original game was at 30. I figured that they would probably just have it be a 60 FPS game. Because was the PS3 one at 60? I don't know. Maybe it was at 30 as well. I'd have to go back.
I don't think it was.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but and staying.
But just something like that has so much things happening and explosions going off and like laser beams going everywhere and you're moving around really quickly benefits from having those extra frames because it's just smoother and you can keep track of things a lot more. They're not jumping around the screen as much.
And talking about Ratchet and Clank, just real quick, Rift Apart will feature a 60 frames per second ray tracing mode at launch. Awesome. I'm fine.
I was a little confused on that. Are they having a 60 FPS and a 60 FPS ray tracing mode too? I was confused by the wording.
It says it adds a performance RT mode that allows the game to run at 60 frames per second with ray tracing enabled. I'm guessing maybe one without enabled and one with. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It says performance mode and performance RT mode.
Yeah.
There's two. It's like if you look at the Insomniac tweet, they're saying on launch day they gain access to performance and performance RT modes.
Yeah.
So they're talking like it's two different things, which is like, but why? Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of like I'm guessing it's going to be like the Spider-Man. See, there's two performance modes in Spider-Man. There's three actually.
Also Insomniac games, so that makes sense.
There was 60 frames per second, then there was ray tracing, and then there's a mode that's 60 frames per second and ray tracing.
They must have added that later on after I'd played then, because I played it right when they came out, and I think they just had the two. But
now they have a third one that does ray tracing and 60 frames. I'm guessing the
we had time to optimize it, so we can turn ray tracing on in a somewhat limited capacity.
And I'm guessing it probably is variable. It may come in and out of 4K. As far as checkerboard. Well, who knows?
I'm going to say that most console games like that have variable resolution. Anyway.
Yeah, that's the word I was trying
to
think.
They're not locked.
Variable resolution.
So that's how they get the performance to go for just even throughout like the PS4 and the current past whatever generations words. They do that a lot to get that to work, so it will adjust your resolution on the fly. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know.
And staying in the Sony part, God of War 2 was delayed to 2022. I didn't even realize they officially said it was going to be 2021. Did they say?
I was pretty sure either the teaser trailer or the blog post after that teaser trailer came out was saying like just 2021. Gotcha. And now they're like, hey, you know what? You're right. All you people who like laughed at us when we said 2021, yeah, it's 2022.
Yeah,
that's pretty much what
I figured it was going to be, but
and take your time, make it well. Come on.
I think the big thing though was when they came out and said it was going to be on PlayStation 4, and man, did I read some comments of people just with the hate. Oh my gosh, the hate. And once again,
guys,
it goes back
to look at the last God of War game. And then shut up because it looks freaking great. Well, so it will look at least that good, then it's fine.
Yeah, and you look at the performance that they changed on PlayStation 5. I mean, come on. I don't know, but this is the same group of people who, like we just said a few minutes ago, think that the PlayStation releasing it on PlayStation 4 is holding it back on PlayStation 5. And I don't know if this is not the same people that had a PlayStation 3 and a PlayStation 4, cross-gen before. Is this like a first time some people have ever had a cross-gen game? I mean,
I just think it's the internet likes to have people complain about things, and I think that they had that the last time around. It's anytime that there's a console switchover, it's just all one of the things people like to complain about, whether it's legit or not.
I mean, this is something that's been happening since the NES days. When the Super NES came out, there was games that were on the Super NES and the NES, the Genesis and the Master System, the Genesis and the Saturn. This is not new. And yes, they're going to put it out on PS4 because there's 117 million people who still have a PlayStation 4.
You know? One of the best looking PS4 games is getting a sequel, and if that sequel looks exactly the same graphic level as that PS4 game, 60 FPS version that you can play on PS5, if it looks like that, I would be happy with it. And it's going to look better than that. It's going to. Like, come on.
I don't know. It drives me
But
crazy.
even if they said, screw it, we're going to put all of our, effort into making it to this, like, fidelity graphics-wise so that we can throw in a couple more boss fights or whatever it would trade off would be, I'd be like, great, cool. Like, it still looks amazing. Like, come on.
Oh, my gosh. People are killing me. I put this one in here for Dennis because I thought of him when I saw this Palia, I guess is how you say it. I saw their tweet the other day. It's like a Stardew Valley MMO. It's by some ex-Blizzard, Epic, and Riot developers. They're calling it a massive multiplayer community sim. This thing looks like it's the most chill game ever for MMO.
It does, yeah. I saw it, and I didn't read too much into it, but like I was like sold right away. I was like, I'm in. And plus, it sounds like it's got like some crazy talent behind it too. So so I'm all for it. I'm excited for it. I feel like this is something I've been wanting for a long time, and then making it an MMO on top of that. I feel like you see a lot of these types of games, they have multiplayer, but to make it an MMO is a whole different ballgame.
Well, I mean, if you read down in, it says it will feature all the elements you'd expect, including hunting, bug catching, and romance options. Homes will be fully customizable and will feature over 1,000 items at launch. It's like.
Well, it's also at the end. It says they haven't got a final price or release date set, but I'm like, why wouldn't they just do free to play? Because something like this, doing it free to play would rake in the money.
Oh yeah, yeah. So
just because it's got that nice, very approachable kind of like cartoony World of Warcraft or any other number of things you could point to of like that kind of approachable art style, that'd be like, yes, I'll try it for free. But as soon as you put like a price tag on it, then a lot of the kids who would want to play it wouldn't get to it or whatever. So
they end up doing a similar model like Warcraft as well, where you can play up to a certain point. And then
it could go that route too. Yeah. But just thinking of like Genshin Impact that had a big impact like last year in 2020 of just like so many people playing that for a while, just like, wow, I can play this for free and then like spend all my money gambling to get characters. Great, I'll do it.
Yeah.
That game, I read somewhere, I think like within the first week or month maybe, raked in like $80 million. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a gacha game. There's a lot of them out there, and that one just happened to hit a much wider demographic than any of those have really hit to this point. So yeah, I played it for quite a while. It was fun. I spent zero money on it because I'm like, screw that crap.
Yeah. But I think I'm going to sign up for the pre-alpha you could sign up for. So I'm going to sign up and try to, I'm going to try to see get in it because I want to try it out. I'm wondering if it's going to be PC only or is it going to be on consoles as well? Or
it says there it's launching PC first. They don't know any other platforms after
Sounds
that.
Like an interesting time.
Yeah, I could definitely
Let's see what was the way they worded it. It was initially launching on PC with additional platforms as time and resources allow. So if it does very well, it will definitely be on other platforms. If it goes and nosedives, you'll never see it anywhere.
Yeah, I could see this if it comes out on PC and it's a hit and it's very good. I could see Microsoft inking some kind of contract to get it on Game Pass on Series X or something like that. And last, what's that? What'd you say, Dennis?
No, it's just that Eric posted up the pre-alpha link here. So
there's a sign up.
Yeah, so I'm going to sign up for it. Yeah. I'm interested to find out exactly what it's like. So, last but not least, like I said a little while ago, E3 starts Saturday. it's all digital, of course. So we've got the schedule. We're going to try, if all goes well, we're going to try to do 2 shows, because the way it breaks down is on Saturday you have Ubisoft and Gearbox, and then that's the big ones on Saturday, and then Sunday afternoon is the Microsoft Bethesda. They're still calling that the Bethesda Microsoft Joint Showcase, which is just weird to me. It's like, look, Microsoft
not weird at all. You know why? They want to capitalize on the recognizable name of Bethesda. That's why.
I know, but it's
maybe after this year they might stop doing that. Yeah. But I don't see why you wouldn't keep, it's a very recognizable branding of just like, hey, Bethesda is almost like, it's a similar if you look at like a movie studios where you have like Disney, but Disney also owns like, whatever, Focus Pictures. I'm throwing no, not even that, but like where you have like, here's your main brand, here's your cool indie movie brand, here's your other brands, and they're all like, you look at it, you see this studio made it, and it's owned by Disney company and owned by Sony company, and it used to be, so it builds back up to the main parent company, but it's still like they have different branding. It used to be
your kids' movies were Disney. Their PG and PG-13 movies were Disney movies were made by Touchstone, which was owned by Disney.
Yeah, I mean, stuff changes all the time as studios come and go, and people buys this or that. So I could totally see, the next Bethesda game come out and say like Bethesda Studios game or a Bethesda game _ at the bottom is like an Xbox company or something. They could brand it that way if they wanted to. I don't know if they will or not, but I definitely say that's probably why they're doing it for here, just because if you're somebody who knows I like Bethesda games, but you don't tune into video game news as much and have no idea that Microsoft owns them now, you keep put that Bethesda name there. Same when any other like 2 big companies merge, they keep both names for a while until eventually they go by one.
Right. So that one's Sunday, and there's also the Square Enix, the PC Gaming Show, and the Future Game Show. So what our plans are is Sunday evening, probably early, we'll record a show talking about Saturday and Sunday stuff. And then on Monday is your Take-Two, your Capcom, all those. And Tuesday is Nintendo Direct, Namco, and then they'll have the award show at the end. So I know we're at least going to do a show on Sunday. I don't know if we'll do one during the week. It'll probably just be Friday or Saturday for a recap of the stuff that we don't, that hadn't been announced on Sunday. With work schedules and everything like that.
Yeah, it's probably very much just gonna be like, hey, here's some Nintendo stuff. I don't know we'll get too much out of Take-Two or any of those other things. Like we might get like 1 or 2 big things maybe out of it. It just depends on if they have something big or not.
And with Sony having no E3 stuff, no nothing, not even doing some kind of presentation during the week is very strange. I figured they would.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's also, it's gonna be a little bit like last year too, where there's a bunch of different things throughout the summer that different people are doing, whether it's a big event or it's just Sony decides, hey, we're gonna do a state of play in July or whatever.
Well, and then Keeley's Summer Fan Fest starts the same week as E3. They start the same day, so who knows? Maybe later.
Hopefully, that's way better than whatever it was last year, where it's like, wait, you're doing a summer long event? I had no idea.
Yeah, I know, right?
You said it on Twitter, but I don't remember any events.
Yeah, there was no real like evidence really that it was happening. It was just like a announcement, and then things popped up here and there. Like there's a demo, and
here's a demo.
E3 is fun because you have all of that at once. You'll at least remember, 1 or 2 big things from E3. But for something like that, thinking about it for last summer, I was like, wait, what was part of that? I don't remember.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I say, we'll look for a show next Sunday. Like I said, we'll try to do it kind of early because we'll probably have a lot to talk about. And then we'll.
Is there anything you guys are hoping to see or think we will see for E3 this time around?
There was rumors the last couple of days that Nintendo was probably gonna do a sort of pre-E3 announcement of the Switch Pro just to get that out of the way, and we still haven't seen that. So, and honestly, at this point, we probably won't even see it at E3 assuming they want to focus on just Switch software. But outside,
I was thinking we'd seen it by now if they were going to do it, but maybe they're going to do it right before. But who knows? Nintendo do what Nintendo do.
Yeah, that's exactly. What's up with them? So
they be their own, go their own, be to their own drummer.
Yeah.
We'll know something.
Outside of that, I don't know, because honestly, I've noticed that over the past couple of years, like it's not. I don't really want sequels anymore. I want original ideas. I want an original IP. So it's stuff that like I don't know what to expect. That's the stuff that excites me.
The one thing that I really want to see that will probably be disappointed, because we've been disappointed for years at this point, but there's hope this time again. Elden Ring finally showing us what that game actually is, because there's like the whole leaked trailer bits and stuff that's all come out in the last few months or whatever. Maybe that exists and maybe they'll finally show it to us. I want to know what the actual game looks like. The teaser trailer is cool and all, but what is that game? I want to know.
Speaking on stuff like that, of like, where is it? Also, on the topic of Ubisoft, Splinter Cell, please God, it's been 6.
I'm going to go out on a limb. There will be no Splinter Cell. There will be no Beyond Good and Evil 2. None of that stuff will show up because they're in nowhere land. Like Beyond Good and Evil 2 is hey, we're going to keep trotting this out in its new iteration 15 times and never put it out at this point. And if they do, whatever version of it that they've been showing the last time, it was just like, that's not what I want. That's not the fun part of that original game. It has a completely different vibe. That's not the same thing, guys.
Well, at least with Beyond Good and Evil, like that, at least we know there's some semblance of that exists, versus Splinter Cell, where it's just like, okay, never to be seen again.
We'll see. We'll see Splinter Cell in that, like, hey, Sam Fisher is coming to like Siege or something. Who knows? Like
stupid like that. He's been like featured in so many places. He's coming to Smash probably. I'm over it.
I'm gonna Mortal Kombat.
Mario versus Rabbids 2 and Sam Fisher, that cool spy friend.
Sam Fisher for Splinter Cell.
You can't actually play with him. He just comes in to assist.
Yeah. I'm anxious to see what this year-long delay of Halo has brought to fruition. I'm anxious to see if it looks...
Are they going to show Halo that much, do you think?
I think they will. I think they'll open with it. I think
their first... Are they going to show like a big, huge thing like they did last time, or is it going to just be more of like, here's a gameplay trailer for 2 minutes instead of like a 5 or 6 minute thing?
What I have heard is, and I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Colt Eastwood, but he does a lot of Xbox stuff. He has a lot of insider people and things like that. He did a video the other day, and I watched it. And it's supposedly what he's been told the whole E3 show is going to be. And they're going to open with Halo. They're going to talk and show the differences in a trailer with the upgrades that they did. But their main focus is going to be talking about the multiplayer aspect of it this time that they didn't talk about at all. So
hate it. I hope that we don't see that. I hope show Halo, yes, that makes sense. Don't spend that much time on it. That's way too much time for Halo. Show you have all these other studios you've bought. You have Bethesda. Show a big breadth of here's all the things that we're working on. Maybe not for every single studio, but show that. Don't spend 20 minutes on Halo. Be like, here's the multiplayer. Here's that. Use that as content that comes outside of it. So show your sizzle reel thingy here in the whole conference and say, and if you want to see more details, we've got a bigger gameplay thingy that'll be online later in a blog post or whatever. It's the same thing when Nintendo does their directs and they have 20 minutes going into the nitty gritty of every single move of this new Smash character or something. They're yeah, cool. If you're into that, that's great. But you could still break that out as its own video so that all the people who are interested in it can see that. But you're not sitting here making everyone else feeling okay, come on, I've seen enough. Keep it moving. That's why I would expect Microsoft not to do that, because they've been pretty good at pacing their kind of presentations before. Well, and if you throw in hey, we're doing Bethesda too. Do we know how long this is supposed to be? How long of a presentation is it?
Hour and a half.
Yeah, because even just either one of those by themselves have done hour-long hour and a half long things before. So smushing it all into one is just like, okay, if you're going to show a lot of stuff, you can't spend too much on any one thing, even if it is Halo.
Right. Well, everything that he has said, they're not really showing any of the Avowed or any of those games that they showed before. Some of them are that they've showed before, like that Gunk and that game. They're going to show it again. But like the Bethesda one's going to be like Starfield. And I forget what else it was. Whatever the new IP from the dudes that made Arcane Studios, whatever their new game is going to be. But it didn't.
Wait, no, because are you thinking of Deathloop?
No,
because that's not an Xbox game.
No, it's a whole new IP that the guys that did
because that's Arcane.
Dishonored did.
That's Arcane.
Yeah,
they're doing Deathloop.
Yeah,
so their next new game is what we'll see. Is what you're saying?
Mm-hmm, yeah,
okay.
It's not Deathloop.
I was just being confused a second. Like, wait, what? Trying to connect the dots.
Because apparently they have two separate studios. So
Deathloop.
They have. Was it Arcane? Is it Austin where they're at, and then Arcane and it's Lyon in France.
Yeah. So whichever one's not working on Deathloop, they're going to show.
I know this because I've watched all the no clip documentaries on their stuff. So it's like, and they put out several different ones. They put one out on Dishonored recently too, so it's a little fresher in my mind.
Yeah, it was a real interesting video. Now of course it's it was nothing official, but I mean it made sense on what they were. But I don't know. This is the one where with Sony having no presence at all, and then coming out and saying God of War's been delayed. This is where Microsoft could really.
Am I misremembering? But maybe I'm thinking of like EA or somebody. But there's somebody who's not at E3 but is already announced like somewhere in like July or something they were going to do something. Maybe I'm thinking of EA.
I think you are because they're not.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything either. So
it was something where I saw a headline somewhere and didn't read into it, and then now I'm trying to filter it back through my brain.
But
remember what it was.
We'll see. I would like to see Ubisoft and Microsoft announce that they're bringing UbiPlay to Game Pass. That would be
Game Pass, yeah.
That would be pretty cool.
I would love that, and I'll just pay an extra $5. I don't care. I've already paid for 2 years of it, so it's like whatever they add now, I get it. I won't have I'll get it for free. But we'll see. But like I say, follow us on Twitter at @GL_podcast. We'll let you know when we're going live with that. Because like I say, probably depending on how much is talked about on Saturday and Sunday, we'll probably do an early show because we'll probably have a lot to touch on and a lot of thoughts to share. So, and then we'll figure out the next show after that. So you'll have to watch the next episode to figure out what we're doing the next episode. So that's how you hook. That's what they call hooking people. It's like...
Look for our second E3 episode in August. No, wait, sorry. We've delayed it again. 2022.
Yeah.
Wait.
So so that's the plan. So no big, we used to do a show after each one, but nah, we'll just do nice big recap shows and bust it up into 2 nights, and it'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, when you take Sony out too, it's also just like, all right, you can do it in one big block without being too overwhelmed.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks a lot for hanging out and listening to us, and we'll catch you next Sunday. I guarantee it. Next Sunday. See ya.
See you guys later.